Chapter 519. The latest chapter of the book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Jiao didn't have so much medicine to save an entire village. If she did, she wouldn't have chosen to stop the plague at its source. Moreover, they were all trusted aides handpicked by Prince Yi and the prince consort. They wouldn't surrender even if she saved them. Gu Jiao finished her 4-drip. She pulled out the needle and packed up the medical supplies. Dr. Tong said, "It's time for dinner. I'll go to the kitchen to see if dinner is ready." He walked out as he spoke. However, he soon turned around and rushed into the room with a frightened expression. He slammed the door shut and pressed his back against it. "Oh no. The prince consort is here. He's here to kill you." "Kill me?" Gu Jiao asked. Dr. Tong said anxiously, "I saw a sword in his hand. If he's not here to kill you, is he here to cut down trees? Was Prince Yi dying and finally decided to kill her to vent his anger?" Gu Jiao stared coldly and said to Dr. Tong, "Move aside." Dr. Tong said, Aye, of course I have to move aside. I won't block the sword for you." But his legs were so weak that he couldn't move. Gu Jiao stood up and walked towards Dr. Tong. She reached out and pulled Dr. Tong back. At the same time, the man with the silver fox also reached out and pushed the door open. Just as the two were about to clash, a soldier suddenly reported anxiously from outside the room. "Sir." "Oh no. The princess is injured." Gu Jiao heard the sound of hurried footsteps outside the door. Dr. Tong stuttered and asked, "WWW, have they left?" Gu Jiao nodded and put down the hand that was about to pull him away. "They're gone." Dr. Tong's legs went weak, and he fell to the ground. "Someone's here," Gu Jiao suddenly said. Dr. Tong scrambled to her feet and hid behind Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao vigilantly looked at the tightly shut door, and secretly tightened her grip on the silver needle at her fingertips. Dong dong dong. The person outside the room gently knocked on the door, following which a low female voice slowly rang out. "I am the princess's maid, Lianer. The princess asked me to come here." Gu Jiao looked at Dr. Tong. Dr. Tong nodded silently. There was indeed a maid by Princess Ning An's side called Lianer, and the voice was indeed the same. Gu Jiao walked back to the table, took out a mask from the small medicine box, and put it on. She also put on the helmet, put down the iron mask, and opened the door for Lianer. "Don't come in," Gu Jiao said. Lianer's foot stopped halfway. She didn't know if it was because of this sentence or because of the voice that said it. Lianer looked at the young man in front of her in disbelief. The young man looked at Dr. Tong behind him. "Go outside and keep watch. Call us if anyone comes." Dr. Tong left. Lianer looked at the handsome young man in armor in front of her and opened her mouth. "You are?" "The prince consort was lured away by the princess?" Gu Jiao asked straightforwardly. Now Lianer was sure that this young man was actually a girl. Lianer was so shocked that she almost couldn't speak. Wasn't he a soldier of the Zhao kingdom? How did he become a girl? It was the princess who lured him away. Lianer recovered after a while and replied to Gu Jiao. "The princess heard that they caught a soldier of the Zhao kingdom, but the prince consort's people kept a close eye on him, so the princess didn't have a chance to see you. Tonight, the princess saw the prince consort go out with a sword and guessed that he might have come to kill you. She didn't care much and told me to quickly come and take you out." "Right, are you from the Gu army? Or are you a border guard?" "Neither," Gu Jiao said. "I'm from the capital." Gu Jiao took out the token under her armor. "Do you recognize it?" Gu Jiao asked. Lianer reached out to take it. Gu Jiao said, "Don't come close." "Oh." Lianer retreated and looked at it carefully for a while. Her eyes lit up. "It's the token of Renshou Palace. The princess also has one in her hands. Were you sent by the Empress Dowager to save the princess?" "The Empress Dowager. Is she finally willing to forgive the princess?" Gu Jiao didn't directly answer her question. Instead, she asked, "Did the prince consort come into contact with the princess after coming up the mountain?" Lianer thought for a while and said, "The prince consort came to visit the princess once, But the princess said that she was sick in bed and didn't see the prince consort. The prince consort stayed outside for a while and then left. Gu Jiao nodded thoughtfully and said, "Then, has the princess felt any discomfort recently? For example, high fever, chills, coughing?" Lianer shook her head. "No, the princess is pretending to be sick, but she isn't really sick. If it wasn't contagious, then it was in the incubation period." Gu Jiao felt that it was very likely that it wasn't contagious. After all, she didn't pay attention to the prince consort, and the prince consort didn't force himself to get close to her. The possibility of contagious breathing and droplets was almost zero. "By the way, what's your name?" Lianer asked. "Gu Jiao." Gu Jiao said. Lianer asked, "Then should I call you Miss Gu or Little Brother Gu?" "It's up to you." It was just a name, so Gu Jiao didn't care. Lianer scratched her head and said, "When we're fighting outside, I'll call you Little Brother Gu." "Little Brother Gu, hurry up and leave with me. The princess can't delay for long. The prince consort will come to kill you later." The prince consort wanted to kill her, so Gu Jiao naturally had to leave. However, she couldn't leave by herself. She had to take Princess Ning'an away. Gu Jiao turned and entered the house. "Take Dr. Tong with you now. Don't let the prince consort see you. Then, pack up the princess things as soon as possible and prepare to go down the mountain." Lianer subconsciously followed her in. As soon as one foot touched the ground, she remembered Gu Jiao's faintness. She coughed lightly and moved her foot back. "No, I can't disobey the princess's orders. The princess wants me to leave. If I don't take you with me, she'll be angry." Gu Jiao opened the small medicine box and took out a few masks. "Being angry is better than dying here. Besides, if I don't want to leave, you can't take me with you." Lianer whispered, "Are you very good at fighting? If I forcefully take you with me, will you knock me out?" "Gu Jiao." Lianer cleared her throat and said seriously, "I know. I can't beat you. I'll report to the princess now." Gu Jiao gave the masks to Dr. Tong and asked her to put them on the princess and the people around her. "What about you?" Dr. Tong asked. "I'm going to get something," Gu Jiao said. Gu Jiao had more or less figured out the layout of this place from Dr. Tong's descriptions. 200 steps east was King Yi's residence. 30 steps north of King Yi's residence was Princess Ning, and the prince consort's residence. Gu Jiao avoided the patrolling guards and snuck into King Yi's courtyard. Probably because they didn't want too many soldiers to be infected by King Yi. Some of the heavy guards had been removed. This made things easier for Gu Jiao. Dr. Tong had never been to King Yi's residence, so she couldn't give Gu Jiao a detailed description of the layout. Gu Jiao accidentally stumbled into King Yi's bedroom. King Yi was asleep, and there were only 2 doctors kneeling outside the screen to boil medicine for him. Gu Jiao tiptoed to King Yi's bedside. Gu Jiao pulled out her dagger, but put it away after taking his pulse. The illness was beyond cure, and there was no cure. She didn't want to waste her energy. Gu Jiao searched the room for a while. About 15 minutes later, she came out of King Yi's residence. At this time, the prince consort also happened to come out of his own courtyard. He carried his sword and walked towards the small room where Gu Jiao was imprisoned. Gu Jiao had to take Princess Ning away before he realized that she had escaped and returned. There wasn't much time left for her. She also had to find her red-tasseled spear. Gu Jiao snuck into the prince consort and Princess Ning'an's courtyard. "Little Brother Gu. Little Brother Gu." Dr. Tong tried her best to keep her voice low. Gu Jiao turned her head and walked towards Dr. Tong, who was at the corner. Dr. Tong didn't care about the boundaries between men and women. Besides, he was much older than Gu Jiao. He pulled Gu Jiao behind a large tree and whispered to Gu Jiao, "Have you thought it through? Are you really going to take the princess down the mountain? If you take the princess away, the prince consort won't let you off. He'll catch up very soon. The princess won't be able to leave. Why don't you leave by yourself?" Although the prince consort and the princess were at odds, it was because the prince consort betrayed the princess and the imperial court. The princess didn't betray the prince consort, so the prince consort couldn't let go of her. He wouldn't allow anyone to take her away. Gu Jiao looked at him calmly and asked, "Do you have anything to pack?" "Ah." Dr. Tong was startled. Weren't they talking about the princess? Why did they talk about him? Gu Jiao said. If you don't, then go to the princess's place and wait for me. You. Dr. Tong seemed to have realized something. His breathing stopped as he stared at Gu Jiao in a daze. Gu Jiao ignored him and went to find her red-tasseled spear. Her luck wasn't bad. The second room she entered was the prince consort's study. Her red-tasseled spear was hanging on the weapon rack. However, the small braid at the tip of the red-tasseled spear had been untied, and the large red flower on the spear was gone. Gu Jiao narrowed her eyes and her gaze slowly turned cold. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/10924138. HTML Genius will remember this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. Chapter 520. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that cannot be found on the internet will be available here. On the other side, the man with a silver fox walked towards Gu Jiao with a murderous look. The patrolling soldiers were frightened by his imposing manner and did not even dare to salute him. It was no wonder that the man with the silver fox was so angry. He was smart all his life, but he was stupid at this moment. He had made such a big mistake in the hands of a brat. He was unwilling to admit his stupidity and did not want to regret. If he had not been obstinate and self-opinionated and listened to his uncle, what would have happened? But there were no ifs in this world, only consequences and results. He could not deceive himself. He regretted that he did not meet that soldier from the Zhao kingdom. If he was given another chance, he would definitely kill him without hesitation. It was too late to kill him now. But he had nowhere to vent his anger. He had to do something. But the man with a silver fox did not expect that when he kicked open Gu Jiao's door, what awaited him was an empty room. Where is she? Doctor. There was no doctor. Sir. The soldiers who were patrolling nearby walked towards the source of the sound and cupped their fists at the man with the silver fox. The man with the silver fox pointed at the room and said coldly, "Where is the person inside?" The soldier said with a strange look, "Sir, are you asking about Dr. Tong? Didn't you ask Dr. Tong to treat the princess?" "When did I?" The man with the silver fox wanted to say something but stopped. He looked at the empty room and thought of something. His expression changed. He pushed the soldier away and walked towards his own courtyard in big strides. When he was near his courtyard, he heard a commotion. Then he saw thick smoke and fire not far away. "Quick, quick, quick! Water!" A corporal ordered the soldiers to fetch water. The scene was in a mess. The man with a silver fox grabbed a soldier who was fetching water and said sternly, "What happened?" The soldier said in shock, "Sir, your courtyard is on fire." His courtyard? The silver fox man's expression changed again. He abandoned the soldiers and rushed over. The fire started from the inside of his study. At first, the soldiers didn't notice it, but by the time it reached the outside, the fire was already quite big. Almost all the documents and important objects in the study were burned to ashes. Jade disc. The imperial jade plate of the Great Li dynasty. That was the genealogy of the Huangfu clan. Every heir of the imperial family was recorded on the jade disc. It was the only thing that could trace their identities. Without the jade disc, who knew what kind of descendants the Huangfu family had left? Who knew what kind of relationship Huang Fuzheng had with the previous dynasty? If the imperial jade seal was lost, it could be found. If it was broken, it could be repaired. However, if the genealogy of the royal family was lost, it would be irretrievable. This fire didn't burn the jade disc of the Great Li dynasty, but the fate of the Huangfu clan. The Huangfu clan was done for. Huang Fuzheng stared in disbelief at the fire that seemed to be burning the Huangfu family's fortune. His heart was boiling with anger. His body was on the verge of collapsing. He refused to accept the thought that flashed through his mind. His hand that was holding the sword began to tremble slightly. Is the princess all right? He suppressed his anger and asked the soldier beside him. The soldier said, "The princess went out." Huang Fuzheng frowned and asked, "What do you mean?" The soldier replied, "The princess said that she went out for a walk." Huang Fuzheng had never restricted Princess Ning'an's freedom to leave the courtyard. As long as she was on the mountain, she could go anywhere she wanted. However, she didn't leave the courtyard a few days ago. Why did she go out today? Only then did Huang Fuzheng remember that Princess Ning'an had summoned Dr. Tong to treat her illness. He had hurried over because he felt that something was wrong. However, when he saw the fire, he forgot about the important matter. No, the fire burning the jade disc was the most important thing. However, it was already burning. Could he still grab the ashes of the jade disc and put it together? Huang Fuzheng went to Ning'an's room. Nothing seemed to have changed. However, when he looked carefully, he found that Princess Ning'an's token was missing. The snacks and dry food on the table were also gone. Huang Fuzheng narrowed his eyes coldly. "Ning'an, you'd better not betray me." In the forest behind the mountain, Princess Ning'an, who was wearing a sable cloak, slipped and fell heavily. "Princess!" Lianer hurriedly supported her. Princess Ning'an shook her head. "I'm fine." There were 4 of them. Princess Ning'an, Lianer, Dr. Tong, and Gu Jiao. The 4 of them put on masks and braved the biting cold wind as they shuttled through the forest behind the mountain. Princess Ning'an was actually not as delicate as the rumors said in the capital. At least she wasn't now. She had lived in the bitter cold of the frontier fortress for so many years, often mingling with the herdsmen. She had herded the sheep, farmed the fields, and done the dirty and tiring work. Her hands were no longer the slender jade-like hands that had lived a pampered life. Her face had also lost its fair and translucent skin due to weathering and exposure to the sun. However, she still had the noble aura of a royal family. Ah! Princess Ning'an fell again. Soon Dr. Tong also fell down. There was no other way. The snow was too deep. "Princess, let me carry you," Lianer said. Princess Ning'an waved her hand. "You can't carry me. I'm too heavy." As she spoke, she turned back to look at the path they had come from. Even though it was night, the moonlight reflected off the snow made the entire back mountain appear very bright. Their mottled footprints could be seen all over the ground. "Let's go quickly. They'll catch up soon," Princess Ning'an said, panting. Gu Jiao focused and asked Princess Ning'an, "Where's the secret passage?" Princess Ning'an raised her sore hand and pointed to the back of the forest. "Through this forest, there is an old well. Underneath the well is the secret passage, if I remember correctly." The last sentence made Dr. Tong's eyelids twitch. "Princess, what do you mean by 'if you remember correctly'? Do you know the secret passage or not?" Princess Ning'an said awkwardly, "I only saw the blueprint of the secret passage in the study. I roughly remember." Ah! Dr. Tong was mute. If she remembered incorrectly and they were cornered, wouldn't they die even more miserably? "Let's go," Gu Jiao said. Dr. Tong gritted her teeth and followed. They had already escaped. There was no way they could go back. Lianer and Dr. Tong supported Princess Ning'an, while Gu Jiao held the red-tasseled spear and tried to keep a safe distance from them. They passed through the forest and arrived near the ancient well. The ancient well was covered by a thick layer of snow. It took them a long time to find the cover. "It's locked," Dr. Tong said in despair. Gu Jiao reached out with her red-tasseled spear and easily broke the lock. Dr. Tong was dumbstruck. Gu Jiao lit a match and threw it into the ancient well. She used the light to see the walls and bottom of the well. There was a rope ladder hanging from the wall of the well. The bottom of the well was empty. There was no danger at the moment. "I'll go down first," Gu Jiao said. "Be careful," Princess Ning'an said. Gu Jiao turned back and nodded slightly. She jumped into the well with her red-tasseled spear. Seeing that she didn't use the rope ladder and directly jumped down, they couldn't help but be surprised. Gu Jiao picked up the match and looked around. She looked up and said, "There's a passage below." There's no danger at the moment. Come down. Princess, you go down first, Lianer said. Princess Ningen nodded and slowly went down the rope ladder. Lianer was next. She was carrying a bundle, and almost got stuck at the mouth of the well. Throw the bundle down, Gu Jiao said to her. Okay. Little brother Gu, you catch it. Lianer threw the bundle to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao caught it. Lianer carefully climbed down. After she steadied herself, she looked up at the mouth of the well. Dr. Tong, you should come down too. Dr. Tong had one foot on the mouth of the well, but the other foot didn't move. I'm afraid of heights. It's not high. There's a ladder. Lianer said. Dr. Tong trembled and was about to cry. No, I really can't do it. At this moment a soldier yelled, Sir, I'm here. They're over there. In the next second, Dr. Tong put her leg in and went down the ladder with a whoosh. Everyone. Gu Jiao handed the fire torch to Dr. Tong. She quickly climbed up the well and covered the manhole cover. The manhole cover was originally a mechanism. Gu Jiao turned the iron rod under the manhole cover and locked the manhole cover from the inside. She jumped down and said to them, Let's go. They entered the secret passage. The secret passage was pitch black. At first, Gu Jiao could still use a fire starter, but after walking for a while, the fire starter couldn't be lit anymore. Lien, take out the night luminescent pearl. Princess Ningen said to Lien. Okay. Lien took out a night luminescent pearl that was bigger than a fist from the bundle. Gu Jiao had never seen such a big night luminescent pearl before. It was quite strange. Princess Ningen looked down and smiled bitterly. Mother gave it to me on my birthday. Gu Jiao didn't know how Princess Ningen felt when she mentioned her grandaunt. Her grandaunt had tried to stop this marriage, but Princess Ningen had been blinded by love and wholeheartedly wanted to marry the prince consort. What she got in return was a scheme and a betrayal. I don't know if mother still wants to see me. She does. Gu Jiao said. Her grandaunt had never forgotten Princess Ningen. Tears flashed in Princess Ningen's eyes, but she didn't cry. She held it in. The sound in the secret passage was very loud. Gu Jiao could hear them prying open the cover of the well and chasing after them like a flood. Other than Gu Jiao, the other three couldn't walk fast. In the end, they were caught in a large cave. One end of the cave was connected to the secret passage they came from. The other end was a rope bridge hanging over the cliff. The moonlight and the snow on the cliff slowly shone into the cave. The cave was lit up. Gu Jiao threw the small basket to Dr. Tong and stood in front of the three. She looked coldly at the pursuers entering the cave. You go first. No one is allowed to leave today. Huang Fuzheng's voice came from behind the army. The soldiers in the cave immediately parted to make a path. Huang Fuzheng walked over with a cold expression. His eyes fell on Gu Jiao. He narrowed his eyes slightly. I underestimated you. You have an epidemic disease and frostbite, but you still have the strength to struggle. Epidemic disease. Lianer looked at Gu Jiao in disbelief. Dr. Tong also looked over in shock. Huang Fuzheng took in their expressions and shifted his gaze to the expressionless Princess Ningen. Princess Ningen didn't look at him. She didn't even want to look at him. Huang Fuzheng clenched his fists. It seems that you don't know that she has an epidemic disease. She brought the disease here. She is dying. If you follow her out, you will be infected by her sooner or later and die of the disease. Lianer was so scared that she moved closer to Princess Ningen. Dr. Tong looked at Gu Jiao in a daze. The medicine you gave me, is it to cure the disease? Huang Fuzheng frowned. He looked at Gu Jiao, who could move freely, and then at Dr. Tong, who didn't look sick at all. In a trance, he realized something. He said excitedly, You have medicine to cure the disease. Even if I do, I won't give it to you. Gu Jiao said in a low voice. She deliberately lowered her voice, and with a layer of iron mask, at first glance, it sounded like the voice of an androgynous teenager. Huang Fuzheng laughed. God doesn't want me to die. No one knew how excited Huang Fuzheng was at this moment. He thought that he was going to die, but this guy had medicine. It was a medicine that could really cure the disease. He and his uncle could be saved. Gu Jiao didn't bring anything with her. Instead, Dr. Tong carried her own medicine box and Gu Jiao's small basket. Huang Fuzheng smirked coldly. Leave this brat to me. You guys go and stop them. Yes. He looked at Princess Ning and don't hurt the princess. Yes. The soldiers swarmed forward. Gu Jiao raised her red spear. Huang Fuzheng jumped up and fought with her. Huang Fuzheng snorted. Boy, I saved you. If it weren't for me, you would have frozen to death in the snow. It's fine if you don't thank me, but you repay my kindness with ingratitude. You hurt me and my uncle, and you even tried to kidnap the princess. Not kidnap, rescue. Gu Jiao swung her spear. Huang Fuzheng raised his sword to block. The two sides fought fiercely in the cave. Huang Fuzheng sneered. Boy, you are no match for me. Gu Jiao was still sick, so her strength was reduced. However, Huang Fuzheng was infected with the disease. He was not much stronger than Gu Jiao. When Gu Jiao stabbed at Huang Fuzheng again, Huang Fuzheng couldn't block it. His long sword was broken. Gu Jiao's red tasseled spear pierced through his shoulder. Then Gu Jiao kicked him to the ground. Huang Fuzheng spat out a mouthful of blood. He didn't expect this boy to be so good at fighting. No wonder he could kill Sky Wolf. Gu Jiao's kung fu was not as good as Huang Fuzheng's. However, if Gu Jiao wanted to die, would Huang Fuzheng dare to? Gu Jiao's eyes were like a ferocious wolf. She took a few steps forward and attacked Huang Fuzheng fiercely. She was running out of energy. She had to solve this problem before that happened. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. Please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. You can find all the novels that you can't find on the internet. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1092175776. HTML Genius memorized the website's address. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. Chapter 521. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. However, just as Gu Jiao was about to cut off Huang Fuzheng's neck, a soldier on the other side grabbed Dr. Tong and held a knife to her neck. Stop, or I'll kill him. Gu Jiao turned around and looked at him coldly. The soldier trembled under her murderous gaze. Before the soldier could threaten her, Gu Jiao's red tasseled spear flew out and pierced the soldier's head. Dr. Tong felt a hot wave of heat shoot towards his face. He closed his eyes and froze. He didn't dare to think if it was blood or brain matter. Huang Fuzheng was shocked by the scene in front of him. He knew that the person who could kill Sirius wasn't an ordinary person, but he didn't expect her to be so decisive and ruthless. When he was threatened, he didn't hesitate at all. At that moment, Huang Fuzheng's blood was boiling. He was excited, fearful, and looked up to an expert. Huang Fuzheng looked at Gu Jiao in disbelief. Gu Jiao stepped on his chest. His ribs broke instantly and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He trembled in pain. Gu Jiao looked down at him from above, her emotionless eyes filled with coldness. Killing someone wasn't scary. What was scary was how calm she was when she did it. Huang Fuzheng felt his soul tremble. Gu Jiao only needed a little more force to step on his ribs and into his lungs. At this critical moment, Huang Fuzheng still didn't give up and looked at Princess Ning'an. Princess Ning'an turned her face away. Ning'an, he said, enduring the pain. Princess Ning'an's throat moved. He didn't know if she heard him or not, but she didn't turn to look at him. Huang Fuzheng suddenly smiled. My uncle has no son. He once said that if he became the emperor, he would make me the crown prince. At that time, I thought that if I became the crown prince, you would be my empress. Ning'an, what's wrong with being the empress? Why don't you want it? They killed your mother. They are your enemies. You would rather return to their side than be my empress. Ning'an, are you done? Gu Jiao asked calmly. Huang Fuzheng coughed out a mouthful of blood. He withdrew his gaze from Princess Ning'an and looked at Gu Jiao mockingly. Do you really think you can leave after killing me? Do you know how much effort I put into building this secret passage? If I don't want you to leave, none of you can leave. Including the princess? Gu Jiao asked. Huang Fuzheng recognized that she was a girl. Unfortunately, his attention was not on Gu Jiao's voice. He said, yes, including her. Gu Jiao said again, you are dying, but you don't let her leave. Is this how you treat her? Huang Fuzheng gritted his teeth. As long as you are willing to give me the medicine, I won't die, and Ning'an won't lose her husband. Oh, you mean it's my fault? Gu Jiao tilted her head coldly and looked at him. You are the one who caused the epidemic. Huang Fuzheng's confidence was completely crushed by her words. In the end, it was all about harming oneself. Huang Fuzheng was seriously injured. He was so angry that his intestines turned green with regret. He coughed out another mouthful of blood. Let him die on his own. Princess Ning, and suddenly turned around, her voice trembling uncontrollably. Anyway, he has the epidemic. He can't live. Huang Fuzheng's eyes lit up when he heard Princess Ning, and pleading for him. However, the next second he heard Princess Ning'an say, when we cross the bridge, cut it off. This was the only secret passage. If the bridge was broken, they would never be able to get out. Huang Fuzheng's expression froze. Ning'an, why are you forcing me? Miss Gu, let's go. Princess Ning'an walked out of the cave without looking back. Gu Jiao walked over and pulled out her red tasseled spear. Huang Fuzheng looked at Princess Ning'an's back and said, I told you you can't get away. Only I can get out of this secret passage. If you don't believe me, you can try. Princess Ning'an had one foot on the cable bridge. She paused for a moment, but did not pay attention to it. She walked forward. Something incredible happened. The moment the cable bridge swayed, the cliff on the other side suddenly shook. It was as if something was splitting open, and then a stone door was revealed. With a loud bang, the stone door opened, and a death warrior full of murderous aura walked out from inside. The man was as tall and strong as Sky Wolf, and his aura was almost the same as Sky Wolf's. Gu Jiao's eyes turned cold. This was Huang Fuzheng sneered. Yes, it's Sky Wolf, the second Sky Wolf. Do you think I only have one Sky Wolf? Although he is not as powerful as Sky Wolf, he is not much weaker. He is more than enough to deal with you. Gu Jiao was so exhausted that it was difficult for her to breathe. She could barely kill Huang Fuzheng. If Sky Wolf came, she would have no chance of winning. Huang Fuzheng said arrogantly, give me the medicine and I'll leave your body intact. Don't hurt her. Princess Ning'an walked quickly to Gu Jiao. Do it. Huang Fuzheng said to the man of sacrifice. The man of sacrifice was incredibly fast. He crossed the cable bridge in an instant, passed Princess Ning'an and came to Gu Jiao's back. He grabbed Gu Jiao's neck, intending to lift Gu Jiao up high. But before he could exert his strength, another strong figure came from the cable bridge. A sharp sword chi cut the man of sacrifice's back. The man of sacrifice did not have time to dodge. He was hit, and the armor on his body cracked. Almost at the same time, Gu Jiao blocked his shoulder with the red tasseled spear. She lifted her foot and kicked him in the chest, using the force to break free from his hands. The man of sacrifice was not injured by this kick, but after being hit twice, he was really angry. He raised his hand to grab Gu Jiao, but Gu Chongqing quickly flashed to Gu Jiao and stabbed the man of sacrifice's wrist. The man of sacrifice's wrist armor cracked. Gu Chongqing held Gu Jiao's waist. He stepped back a dozen steps and gently put his sister down at the entrance of the cave. His hand holding the sword was full of murderous intent. He looked at Gu Jiao with gentle and loving eyes. Can you still walk? Cross the bridge first and wait for me there. Gu Jiao nodded. The soldiers in the cave were not a threat. They had been scared silly by Gu Jiao's headshot. Almost no one dared to stop her. Gu Jiao, Princess Ning'an, and the others got on the cable bridge. Stop them! Huang Fuzheng shouted. Gu Chongqing blocked the entrance of the cave with his long sword. He looked coldly at the man of sacrifice charging at him. He said to Gu Jiao, get on the bridge and don't look back. Okay. She did not look back. Gu Jiao led the way onto the bridge. Princess Ning'an and Lianer followed closely behind. Dr. Tong brought up the rear. But he really was afraid of heights. This time, it was not an ancient well under his feet, but a bottomless abyss. and the cable bridge would shake. Sob, sob, sob. It was too difficult for him. They're coming, Gu Jiao said. Ah! Dr. Tong waved her arms and leaped over with a whoosh. He was the first to reach the cliff on the other side. The sounds of fighting came from behind them. Cold wind blew from the cave towards the cable bridge. Gu Jiao smelled the thick scent of blood. She didn't know if it was the man of sacrifices or Gu Chongqing's. She was obedient. She did not look back. The group crossed the bridge and entered the cave on the other side of the cliff. Snow fell from the sky again. They could not see what was happening on the other side of the bridge, even if they wanted to. They could only hear the sound of bones breaking and blades breaking. Then, they heard footsteps on the cable bridge. The footsteps approached quickly, bringing with them a thick scent of blood and killing intent. Then a loud bang was heard. Shockingly, the cable bridge behind them had been cut apart. Gu Jiao quickly turned around. The figure with the scent of blood and killing intent came over, and gently pulled her into his embrace, but he did not let his blood-stained arm touch her. Didn't I tell you not to look back? You're not obedient at all. His murderous aura dissipated in an instant. Gu Jiao's little head was against his chest. She pointed behind her. That's behind me, I didn't look back. Gu Chongqing couldn't help smiling. His lips curled, twisting words. Gu Jiao sniffed. You're injured. Gu Chongqing said. No, it's his blood. Is he dead? Gu Jiao asked. He would not let off a single person that bullied his little sister. The snow that filled the sky poured into the cave. The death warrior was stabbed in the chest by a huge broken ice pillar. Beside him, the prince consort was stabbed in the heart by a sharp sword. He turned his head and looked at the cave on the other side of the rope bridge. Not only did Gu Jiao not look back, Ning'an didn't look back either. Princess Ning'an only saw half of the map. They had to figure out the rest of the way by themselves. They passed through countless caves in the mountain range. Even they weren't sure where they were at the end. Gu Chongqing carried Gu Jiao on his back, and her red-tasseled spear hung in front of him. I'm sick, Gu Jiao said. It's an epidemic. So you have to put me down, Gu Jiao said in a doctor's tone. It was very serious. However, to Gu Chongqing, it sounded like his sister was seriously ill and his sister felt wronged. It's my fault. Gu Chongqing apologized sincerely. I didn't take good care of you. Gu Jiao. What was going on? Gu Jiao said. I don't want you to carry me. Gu Chongqing said. Then I'll carry you. Gu Jiao said. I don't want you to carry me either. Gu Chongqing thought about it seriously. Then should I let you ride on my neck? Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao put on a mask and Gu Chongqing also put one on. In addition, Gu Chongqing also took the medicine to prevent the epidemic. Of course, Princess Ning'an and Lianer also took it. The brother and sister duo walked at the front. The other three already knew that Gu Chongqing was the young master of the Gu army, and that Gu Jiao was his sister. Along the way, Gu Chongqing would give anything good to his sister first. If he had to carry anything, he would only carry his sister. In his eyes, he was his sister's brother first, and then Princess Ning'an's minister. How did you find this place? Gu Jiao asked. Gu Chongqing said casually. I asked an aide of the previous dynasty about the map of the stronghold and the secret passage. He didn't want her to know how he had asked her. He already knew why Gu Jiao went to kill Sirius. He didn't find Gu Jiao in the forest that day, so he returned to the governor's residence to see if he could find any clues. In the end, he really did learn a thing or two from an aide of the emperor's son-in-law who had been imprisoned. It turned out that the emperor's son-in-law had bought a group of powerful men of sacrifice from the Yan kingdom. The leader was called Sirius, and the second most likely was the one he had just killed. The emperor's son-in-law and Prince Yi found the plague victims to infect the Gu army, and the emperor's son-in-law bought Sirius from the Yan kingdom to deal with Gu Chongqing. They wanted Gu Chongqing's legs and made Gu Chongqing lose everything, so that he would live the rest of his life like a ghost. Gu Jiao must have accidentally learned of the emperor's son-in-law's plan. She did it for him. When he thought of this, Gu Chongqing's heart ached. He had the best younger sister in the world, so he also wanted to be her best older brother. You're disobedient, Dr. Gu sternly said before falling asleep on Gu Chongqing's shoulder. When Gu Chongqing heard the even breathing on his back, his eyes flashed with tenderness. He raised the cloak in his hand and gently covered her petite body. No matter how much she suffered, he would return the pain bit by bit. The biting cold wind and snow flew over, cutting his face like knives, but none of it blew on Gu Jiao's body. She fell into a deep sleep on his warm and broad back. The power of the previous dynasty had completely collapsed. The Qin Kingdom's army in Beiyang City and Yi City only had 80,000 soldiers left. On the 27th day of the 11th month, Gu Chongqing led the 60,000 Gu army to attack Beiyang City. In one night, they killed 20,000 of the enemy. Prince Bo was no match for them, so he led the remaining 20,000 Qin Kingdom soldiers to abandon the city and regroup with the 40,000 Rong army in Yi City. 3 days later, Gu Chongqing led the 90,000 Gu army and arrived at the city gates. At this time, the 80,000 Qin Kingdom reinforcements arrived. Prince Bo was overjoyed. He planned to split up with the 80,000 reinforcements and attack the Gu army from the front and back, but he didn't expect the leader of the 80,000 reinforcements to be Yuan Tang. Yuan Tang rode on a tall horse and looked at Prince Bo and Rong Yao on the city gate tower. He showed the yellow imperial edict in his hand and said concisely, "I'm here on my father's orders to clean up the rebels. Those who surrender will be forgiven, and those who rebel will be killed." There were nearly 100,000 Gu army soldiers and 80,000 Qin Kingdom soldiers. Prince Bo and Rong Yao's 60,000 men were surrounded by enemies. There was no way they could win. Not to mention that Yuan Tang had the imperial edict, so he had a good reason to attack. The morale of the 60,000 Qin Kingdom soldiers plummeted. Yuan Tang looked at Rong Yao and smiled obediently. "Uncle, my father wants to capture Prince Bo. If you kill him, you can redeem yourself." As he spoke, he seemed to be afraid that Rong Yao wouldn't believe him. He handed the imperial edict to a soldier, and had the soldier bring it into the city. The imperial edict did say that the traitor Prince Bo was to be killed. Rong Yao held the imperial edict, and his eyes flashed. Prince Bo trembled. "Rong Yao, don't be fooled by this father and son. You've already rebelled. If you kill me, my brother won't let you go." Rong Yao said coldly, "The king won't let me go after I return to the capital. But if I don't kill you, Yuan Tang won't let me go now. So I'm sorry, Prince Bo." Gu Chongqing wasn't interested in fighting in the Qin Kingdom, but if he could subdue the enemy without fighting, it would be a good idea. Prince Bo and Rong Yao began to fight on the city gate tower. Yuan Tang rode his horse calmly towards Gu Chongqing. The Gu army wanted to stop him, but Gu Chongqing raised his hand to stop them. The fact that Yuan Tang had come alone was enough to show his sincerity. Yuan Tang stopped in front of Gu Chongqing's horse, raised his eyebrows and introduced himself. "Dr. Gu's friend Yuan Tang." Gu Chongqing looked at him deeply, straightened his back, and said with a rare boastful tone, "Jiao Jiao's older brother Gu Chongqing." The Gu army was speechless. Isn't this introduction a bit wrong? Shouldn't it be the 6th prince of the Qin Kingdom, and the young master of the Gu army? In your eyes, these two identities can't compare to Dr. Gu's friend and Jiao Jiao's older brother? Digression. When I return to the capital tomorrow, I just took a look. I'm only 4 votes away from breaking the 100 mark. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/109216430. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. Chapter 522. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. Prince Bo is a member of the royal family. Although he can be considered a martial artist, he can't be compared to Rong Yao, who is a famous general on the battlefield. In the end, Prince Bo was seriously injured by Rong Yao and died. I was reckless. I wanted to capture him alive, but this person was too difficult to deal with. I accidentally killed him. Please punish me, Your Highness. This is what Rong Yao said when he walked down the tower and came to Yuan Tang. Yuan Tang was still by Gu Chongqing's side, riding a tall horse. He looked down at his own uncle, Rong Yao. He laughed coldly in his heart. Even his uncle wouldn't believe this kind of nonsense. Well, if he didn't kill Prince Bo, what would happen if Prince Bo returned to the palace and said something unfavorable to Rong Yao? This uncle of his is really far-sighted and ruthless. But does he really think that without Prince Bo, nothing will go wrong? Yuan Tang looked at Rong Yao with a faint smile and said, Uncle, you have worked hard. You have contributed greatly by killing the rebels. When we return to the capital, Father will definitely reward you accordingly. Rong Yao kneels down on one knee and says with a face full of fear and trepidation, I don't dare to reward you. I only want to make up for my mistakes. I was also bewitched by Prince Bo. I really thought that everything was the Emperor's will. Who would have thought that this person made up the imperial edict and caused us to follow him on an expedition? Your Highness, please investigate this matter. Gu Chongqing's thin lips move. Rong Yao's face becomes very ugly. Rong Yao's youngest son, Rong Fu, died at the hands of Gu Chongqing. Rong Yao has a lot of resentment towards Gu Chongqing, but people under the eaves have to bow down. Yuan Tang looks at Gu Chongqing and then at Rong Yao and says, Uncle, you are too serious. When we return to the capital, Father will investigate the truth. As long as you have a clear conscience, I believe that one day the truth will be revealed. A layer of cold sweat appeared on Rong Yao's forehead. He didn't dare to raise his head to look into Yuan Tang's eyes. He could already feel the threat from Yuan Tang. Your Highness, may I have a word with you? Rong Yao said to Yuan Tang. Yuan Tang rode his horse back to the camp of the Chun State's army. General Zhang looked at their backs and said to Gu Chongqing, General, I'm afraid that the one surnamed Rong wants to fight. The 80,000 reinforcements from the state of Chun and the 60,000 soldiers from Yi City greatly outnumbered the Gu army. If they really fought, it would definitely be a bloody battle. There was no trace of anxiety on Gu Chongqing's face. He said calmly, Yuan Tang won't agree. If Yuan Tang really wanted to start a war, they wouldn't have come alone, and they wouldn't have introduced themselves as Gu Jiao's friends. It wasn't clear what Yuan Tang said to Rong Yao, but Rong Yao was on the verge of exploding. Yuan Tang ignored him and ordered the 60,000 soldiers of the state of Chun to leave Yi City. Of course, this wasn't over. The state of Chun was the one who violated the peace treaty and started the war. All the losses would be borne by the state of Chun. For the state of Chun, which had already suffered losses, this was like adding fuel to the fire. But this time, Yuan Tang truly saw the cruelty of war and the terrible price it brought. If Yuan Tang was still thinking about starting a war with the state of Zhao when he was a hostage, then he no longer had such thoughts. War was a struggle for power between those in power, but the ones who paid with their lives were the innocent soldiers and civilians. Yuan Tang rode his horse to the camp of the Gu army again. He said to Gu Chongqing seriously, If you trust me, I want to escort Rong Yao back to the capital of the state of Chun. Later, I will personally go to the capital of the state of Zhao to ask for forgiveness and negotiate with the emperor. Yuan Tang was still a hostage of the state of Chun. Logically speaking, he was going to return to the capital with Gu Chongqing. Letting him go was like letting a tiger return to the mountain. Without waiting for Gu Chongqing to answer, Yuan Tang said again, But before that, I hope to go to Yuegu City with you and pay a visit to the Grand Marshal and the old Marquis. Okay, Gu Chongqing said. Yuan Tang had followed Gu Chongqing to ancient Moon City alone. This magnanimity and courage made people look at him in a new light. But when they actually arrived at Yuegu City, Gu Chongqing realized that he had been tricked. This kid didn't come to visit Tang Yueshan and his grandfather. He was clearly here to see his sister. As soon as Yuan Tang entered the city, he went to the wounded barracks. Dr. Gu, I'm here. Looking at Yuan Tang, who didn't treat him as an outsider at all, Gu Chongqing narrowed his eyes dangerously. Gu Jiao's disease had long been cured and he had passed the quarantine period. At this time he was guiding a few soldiers in rehabilitation in the wounded barracks. He was wearing the armor of a general of the state of Chun. When he suddenly barged in, the soldiers in the wounded barracks were so shocked that they immediately pulled out the swords beside the bed. Yuan Tang clicked his tongue, took off the sword at his waist, and threw it to the nearest wounded soldier. "Take it." The wounded soldier was speechless. Gu Jiao's expression was very calm. He only glanced at Yuan Tang, then said to the recovering soldier beside him, "You continue." The recovering soldier continued to walk forward with the help of his crutches. Yuan Tang stood beside Gu Jiao uninvited and said exaggeratedly, "You're not excited to see me at all. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have come to see you." "What's the matter?" Gu Jiao asked. Yuan Tang opened his mouth, but it seemed that there was nothing. He clicked his tongue and said, "Aren't you going to ask me what I'm doing at the frontier fortress?" Gu Jiao said, "Oh, to kill Prince Bo or to kill Rongyao?" Yuan Tang was speechless. "Here for you." Yuan Tang handed a small bag that he always carried with him to her. "What is it?" Gu Jiao asked. Yuan Tang stuffed the bag into her arms and said, "The begonia flower box is for you. The bamboo box is for my cousin. I have to go back to the capital to deal with my uncle. I might not be able to go to Zhaodu for a while. Bring it to my cousin for me." "Okay." Gu Jiao agreed. Yuan Tang raised his eyebrows and said, "Don't think too much about it. I'm only giving you this gift to thank you for helping my cousin. Moreover, it was thanks to your husband that I was able to escape from Zhaodu originally." Yuan Tang thought that he had hidden it well, and did not let Xiao Lulang know. But after thinking about it carefully, Xiao Lulang was supposed to be on duty at the Yamen, but he suddenly changed his route, and went out of the capital's north gate. He even stopped at the relay station for a while. Perhaps Xiao Lulang had already discovered him, and deliberately sent him away. Gu Jiao did not know that there was such a thing. It was really fortunate that Xiao Heng let Yuan Tang go. Otherwise, this battle would not have ended so quickly. Moreover, both sides would have suffered a lot of casualties. Yuan Tang said, "Okay, I've said everything that needs to be said. I should go now. Remember to tell my cousin to miss me." Hearing this, Gu Changqing finally sheathed his sword. Yuan Tang spurred his horse and left Yuegu City. Looking at his receding figure, General Zhang asked, "General, are we really letting him go just like that? The state of Chun has 140,000 soldiers. If he starts a war with us now..." "He won't," Gu Changqing said. Jiao Jiao believed in him, so he believed in him. Gu Jiao came out of the wounded barracks and saw Gu Changqing waiting at the door. "Are you here to change your bandages?" Gu Jiao asked. Gu Changqing said seriously, "Yes." Gu Jiao took him to the tent next door, and cut the gauze on his hands with scissors. This was not the injury he got when he held the red tasseled spear to protect Gu Jiao when she lost control, when he first came to Yuegu City. It was the injury he got when he went to the nest of the remnants of the previous dynasty to find Gu Jiao. Gu Changqing skimmed over the incident that day. But the process was far more difficult and complicated than he imagined. He learned from his advisor that the map of the previous dynasty's army's nest and the secret passage was not fake. Unfortunately, the map was incomplete, and the wooden bridge leading to the nest was destroyed by Huang Fuzheng. Gu Changqing stood on the cliff for a long time. He was sure that unless he grew wings, it was impossible for him to fly over with his qinggong. He planned to go down the mountain first, go around the foot of the mountain, and then climb to the top of the opposite mountain. The hardships were self-evident. Fortunately, although the map was incomplete, the general direction was correct. He climbed the cliff with great difficulty, and almost fell into the bottomless abyss several times. At that time, he only had one thought in his mind. He wanted to live and find his sister alive. The injury on his hands was from climbing the cliff, and it had not healed yet. He also led troops to fight, and it was torn repeatedly. In Gu Changqing's eyes, this injury was nothing. If Gu Jiao was not here, he would not have bothered to change his dressing. "You can't get injured again, or your hands will be crippled," Gu Jiao said seriously as she changed his dressing. Gu Changqing smiled gently. "Yes, I won't. The war is over." The thread here can be removed, Gu Jiao said as she looked at the wound on the back of his left hand. Gu Chongqing obediently stretched out his hand. Gu Jiao took out a sterilized pair of scissors. It will hurt a little, Gu Chongqing said. It won't hurt. It won't hurt even if you get stitches. There was no anesthetic, so it would be strange if it didn't hurt. At the mention of this, Gu Jiao's hand paused. After escaping from the mountains, she had stitched up Gu Chongqing's wounds. At that time, there happened to be a wounded soldier, who also needed stitches. However, there was only one anesthetic in the small medicine box. Gu Chongqing gave the anesthetic to the wounded soldier because he did not need it. He was a martial artist, so it was inevitable for him to get injured. Occasionally, when his injuries were serious, he would need to drink a little anesthetic soup. However, no matter what kind of anesthetic soup it was ineffective on him. Gu Jiao could not help but remember when she first came to the capital. When she stitched up Gu Chongqing's wounds for the first time, there was no anesthetic in the small medicine box. At that time, she did not think too much about it. Now that she thought about it, perhaps the small medicine box had already determined that the patient could not tolerate anesthesia. So all the big and small wounds on his body were stitched up without anesthesia at all? Gu Chongqing stared at Gu Jiao and smiled gently. It doesn't hurt really. Gu Jiao answered seriously, but her movements were much lighter. The war was over, and the plague patient had recovered. Now, it was time for Gu Jiao's group to return to the capital. Tang Yueshan left behind a portion of the garrison. Gu Chongqing also left behind 20,000 Gu clan soldiers to assist in the reconstruction of the three cities after the disaster. After the governors of Beiyang City and Yi City were killed, the imperial court issued edicts overnight to appoint 2 new governors. When the new governors arrived at their respective residences, the Gu clan army and the imperial court's garrison were ready to go. Princess Ning was going to return to the capital with them. It was the old marquis's task to bring Princess Ning back to the capital. Currently, the old marquis was still recovering in bed, so Gu Chongqing came forward to ask Princess Ning for instructions. In the governor's residence, Gu Chongqing met with Princess Ning in the study. Ever since Princess Ning came down from the mountain, she had been staying in her room. She did not go out or speak to anyone. Gu Chongqing understood that the matter of the remnants of the previous dynasty had a great impact on her, so he never mentioned the war or the prince consort in front of her. Gu Chongqing cupped his hands in greeting and said seriously, "We'll be returning to the capital tomorrow morning. Does the princess have any other orders?" Princess Ning stared blankly at the snowy scenery outside the window. After a while she muttered, "On the way back to the capital, can we go to Ji City to pick up someone?" As she spoke, she seemed to be afraid of troubling Gu Chongqing, so she added, "There's no need for too many people. A few people will be enough. It won't be hard for him to pick up." Gu Chongqing roughly understood who they were going to pick up. He said, "I will go personally." "I want to go too." In another room in the governor's residence, Gu Chengfeng, who had already taken off the splint on his arm and was back to full health, exploded. He had finally recovered from his injuries and planned to go to the battlefield to fight to his heart's content. But in the end, he was told that the Chen kingdom had surrendered. He had just become a part of the Gu clan's army and had assumed the title for nothing. The main reason was that he wanted his eldest brother to witness his strength. Okay. Gu Chongqing agreed. Gu Chengfeng was excited the entire night. Finally, he could go on a mission with his eldest brother. Unexpectedly, when he walked out of the military camp fully armed, he saw Gu Jiao by his eldest brother's side. Gu Chengfeng's face instantly darkened. She's going too? Wasn't it just him? Why did a servant girl have the honor of fighting side by side with his eldest brother? Get on the horse. Gu Chongqing patted his horse and said, that's more like it." Gu Chengfeng curled his lips and walked towards his eldest brother's horse. He had been eyeing his eldest brother's horse for a long time. In their family, other than his grandfather's horse, his eldest brother's horse was the best. It was even better than the horse he had stolen from the prince consort. "Not you." Gu Chongqing blocked him mercilessly. He carried Gu Jiao by the waist and gently placed her on the horse's back. he said gently, sit tight. Gu Jiao nodded. Gu Chongqing flipped over and sat on Gu Jiao's horse. Then, the two of them left like a cloud of dust. Gu Qingfeng was left behind with a dumbfounded expression. Hey, have you all forgotten something? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/1091934115. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. Chapter 523. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. The person Gu Chongqing and Gu Jiao were going to pick up was the son of Princess Ning, Anan Huangfuzheng. He was 13 years old this year. When Princess Ning mentioned him, she didn't say much. She only said, he's not in good health. But when the three of them arrived at the address Princess Ning provided, they realized that they had underestimated the meaning of not in good health. It was a young man sitting in a wheelchair. His cheeks were thin and his skin was pale. He was wrapped in a thick cloak, and the fox fur on his collar fluttered in the cold wind. He had a pair of long and narrow eyes, very much like his father's. And his nose and mouth were very much like his mother's. He sat in the yard full of green bamboo, with only 4 guards around him. When he saw the 3 brothers and sisters in armor, his expression didn't change at all. He just held the wheels of the wheelchair with both hands and said lightly, "You're here to pick me up?" "Ah yes," Gu Qingfeng said blankly. "Let's go." He pushed the wheelchair. Gu Chongqing stared at him and didn't say anything. He walked forward and went behind him to push the wheelchair. "I'll do it." He let go of the wheelchair. "Well, aren't you going to ask who we are?" Gu Qingfeng asked him doubtfully. He said, "If you're not my father's men, then you're my mother's men. My father's army was defeated, so I guess that you were sent by my mother." "Quite smart," Gu Qingfeng muttered. To be honest, Gu Qingfeng was a little disappointed. He thought that they were here to save someone. But who would have thought that they were really here to pick him up? He wanted to fight and show his brother his kung fu, but it was a waste. Gu Chongqing pushed the young man out the door. Gu Jiao stood at the door, leaning against the door frame with her arms crossed. When Gu Chongqing pushed the wheelchair over, Gu Jiao glanced at his leg. It was not out of any offense or curiosity. It was purely a doctor's diagnosis of a patient. Unfortunately, his legs were covered with a thick blanket, so Gu Jiao couldn't see anything. In the house, there was a special carriage for the young man. The door at the back could be opened, and when it was lowered, it would be a landslide. Gu Chongqing pushed the wheelchair up, and Gu Qingfeng helped to close the door. "Are they leaving together?" Gu Chongqing looked at the 4 guards in the house. The young man said indifferently, "Does the capital lack people to serve me?" There was nothing wrong with his words, but it made people feel that he was not easy to get close to. However, Gu Chongqing originally had no intention of getting close to him. On the way back to the capital, they were lord and minister. Perhaps after returning to the capital, they would become strangers who would never see each other again. There was something on the floor of the carriage to secure the wheelchair, but Gu Chongqing was not familiar with it, so the young man did not remind him. When the coachman was about to start the carriage, Gu Jiao said, "Wait." The coachman stopped. Gu Jiao lifted the curtain and got into the carriage. She pulled out a few wooden buckles hidden in the floor and stuck them on the wheels of the wheelchair. During the entire process, she did not deliberately touch the young man's legs. After doing this, she glanced at the young man, then turned and got out of the carriage. They had set off first, and the army was still behind them. Gu Chongqing found a relay station that they had to pass through on the way back to the capital. He asked for 2 rooms, one for Gu Jiao and one for the young man. The army would arrive at night, so Gu Changqing and Gu Qingfeng slept in a tent. After the young man entered the relay station, he fell asleep and did not come out to eat dinner. The 3 siblings made a bonfire in the courtyard and roasted some sweet potatoes and bacon. Gu Changqing brought some food to the stable to feed the horses. Gu Qingfeng and Gu Jiao sat next to the fire. Gu Qingfeng moved closer to Gu Jiao and whispered, "Hey, don't you think that kid is strange?" "How is he strange?" Gu Jiao flipped over the bacon on the fire. Gu Qingfeng swallowed and used a stick to stick a roasted sweet potato. He lowered his voice and said, "His father died, but he doesn't seem to be sad. And his personality, it always gives me a gloomy feeling. And his legs, what do you think is wrong with his legs? Is he injured or crippled?" As Gu Qingfeng spoke, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. He turned his head and saw that the young man had come out of the room at some point. He was sitting in a wheelchair with the cold wind blowing in. He was as gloomy as a ghost from the underworld. Gu Qingfeng had always been bold, but this time, he could not help but feel his hair stand on end. The sweet potato in his hand dropped. Gu Jiao looked at him calmly, then looked away and continued to roast the meat. "What are you roasting?" the young man asked. "Bacon," Gu Jiao said. "I want to eat too," the young man said. Gu Jiao flipped the meat. "I'll send it in when it's done." The young man refused. "No, I want to eat here." There were steps from the house to here. He could not go down by himself. Gu Qingfeng composed himself and walked over. He carried him down the steps with his wheelchair and pushed him to the fire. "It's windy here. You can go in after a while," Gu Qingfeng kindly reminded him. The young man did not respond. Instead, he looked at Gu Jiao, who was seriously roasting meat. "Why are you wearing a mask? Are you ugly? Can't you see people?" Gu Qingfeng straightened his back. "Hey! How can you say that? Who's ugly?" the young man mocked. "If you're not ugly, why are you covering your face?" Gu Qingfeng wanted to beat him up. Gu Qingfeng's face turned cold and he snorted. "We like to. If covering your face means you don't have the face to see people, then are you sitting in a wheelchair without legs?" As soon as he finished speaking, Gu Qingfeng felt the young man's expression stiffen. Gu Qingfeng suddenly realized that he might have said something wrong. He opened his mouth to say something, but it was too late. The young man slowly pulled up the corners of his lips and smiled mockingly. Then, under Gu Qingfeng's somewhat guilty and shocked gaze, he raised his pale hand and pulled away the blanket covering his legs. A gust of cold wind blew past, blowing up his empty trousers. The military report of the victory at the frontier fortress arrived at the palace as early as the beginning of December. The emperor and the civil and military officials all breathed a sigh of relief. The remnants of the previous dynasty colluded with the pirates and the Qin army, causing the 2 borders of the Zhao kingdom to be at war at the same time. The Zhao kingdom was attacked from both sides. They also heard that the old Marquis and Princess Ning and had been captured. Originally, no one had much confidence in this battle, but they did not expect the Gu army to win so quickly. The emperor began to look forward to the return of Princess Ning and Gu Changqing, Tang Yueshan, the old Marquis and the soldiers. Of course, there was also the little godly doctor. He was the one who gave the imperial edict to let the little godly doctor out of the capital. At that time, he really did not expect the little godly doctor to go to the frontier fortress. If it were not for the news from Yuegu City that there were 2 officials sent by Empress Dowager Zhuang with the token of Rensho Palace, he would still be in the dark. If he had known that she was going to such a dangerous place, he would not have given her the imperial edict to leave the city. Only the heavens knew that his imperial mother hated him to death. He had not seen her for 3 days. "Not here yet. Not here yet." The emperor sat restlessly in the imperial study. Soon. They said that they will arrive in a few days," Eunuch Wei said with a smile. The emperor looked at him with hidden bitterness. "You said that last time." Eunuch Wei smiled embarrassedly. "Isn't it because the mountain was blocked by heavy snow and they suddenly could not leave? The weather was colder than when they left, and the mountain was blocked by heavy snow more often. Originally, according to the speed of the army's rapid march, they should have arrived in the capital on the 20th. But day after day, Even after the new year, there was still no sign of the army. The emperor slumped back in his chair. If the little godly doctor does not return, I fear that Imperial Mother will ignore us for the rest of her life. The emperor was wrong. Jiao Jiao did not return. Empress Dowager Zhuang did not want to pay attention to this foolish son of hers. He actually took her Jiao Jiao to the frontier fortress. How did she not suffocate him with a blanket? In Baishui Alley, the family was also waiting for Gu Jiao to return. Each day felt like a year. The night that Gu Jiao left, they all went to sleep. It was only the next day that Xiao Heng told them that Gu Jiao had gone to the frontier fortress. Yao Shi almost fainted on the spot. The frontier fortress was at war. How could her daughter go to that kind of place? Gu Yan was used to Gu Jiao's existence. When she suddenly left, Gu Yan felt as if he had been cut in half and taken away. Gu Xiaoshan was also very worried and sad. He grew up with Gu Jiao. He spent the most time with Gu Jiao, and the shortest time apart. Therefore, he was the one who was not used to it. Little Jing Kong woke up and found that Gu Jiao was not there. He almost cried. Then he saw the letter that Gu Jiao left for him. Then he held back his tears. Jiao Jiao was not in the capital. It was useless for him to cry. He wanted to keep his tears and cry for Jiao Jiao when he came back. Xiao Heng was now working in both the Imperial Hanlin Academy and the Ministry of Justice. The Ministry of Justice was more informed than the Imperial Hanlin Academy. The Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of War were the first to know if there was any movement on the front line. Whether it was for official business or for personal reasons, Xiao Heng spent more time in the Ministry of Justice than in the Imperial Hanlin Academy. He opened countless letters. Is the mountain blocked by the heavy snow again? Minister Xing asked Xiao Heng, who was sorting out the letters, as he wrote the memorials. Xiao Heng put away the letters and said in his usual tone, "Yes. They were delayed in Sangzhou." Minister Xing frowned and said, "Sangzhou is at least 7 or 8 days away from here. I'm afraid the army won't be able to come back before the new year." The day after tomorrow was New Year's Eve. Even if the army didn't stop, they wouldn't be able to come back to the capital. Xiao Heng looked at the flying snow outside the window and showed a thoughtful expression. The border was bitterly cold and smoky, but the capital was not affected by the war. The streets and alleys were full of peddlers and soldiers, shops and crowds. It was as prosperous as a brocade. Every house in Puaishui Alley hung red lanterns and pasted window flowers in couplets. Their house also pasted them. This year, Lin Qingye and Feng Lin both went back to Yuzhou to celebrate the new year. There were many people in the house, but it still felt cold and cheerless. They didn't know if it was because the two of them were missing, or because Gu Jiao was missing. The little loudspeaker didn't blabber anymore. His great-aunt also didn't play mahjong with the neighbors. Madame Yao's youngest son was 3 months old, but he was very obedient. He didn't cry or make a fuss. It was as if there was no baby at home. Little Jing Kong stood at the doorstep. His small arms were stretched out behind his back. His small body fluttered and his small head looked at the alleys on both sides. Jiao Jiao. He wanted to Jiao Jiao. The sound of a carriage came from the door. Little Jing Kong excitedly ran out with his short legs. After running for a while, he realized that it was his bad brother-in-law who came back. Little Jing Kong's small face darkened. He said disappointedly, "Why is it you?" Xiao Heng got out of the carriage and tapped his forehead. "Why isn't it me?" "Humph." Little Jing Kong turned his face away. "Let's go," Xiao Heng said to him. Little Jing Kong slowly followed behind him. He looked back 3 times with every step. Xiao Heng walked in front. He didn't need to look back to know what he was doing. Stop looking. Jiao Jiao won't come back today. Little Jing Kong asked, "Why?" Xiao Heng said, "The heavy snow has sealed the mountain. The army can't leave." Little Jing Kong asked, "Can Jiao Jiao come back tomorrow?" Xiao Heng said, "I don't know." Little Jing Kong asked, "What about the day after tomorrow?" "The day after tomorrow is New Year's Eve. It's my birthday. Can Jiao Jiao come back in time to celebrate with me?" Xiao Heng said, "You weren't born on New Year's Eve." Little Jing Kong put his hands on his waist and stomped his feet. "The abbot said that my birthday is on New Year's Eve. That's New Year's Eve. Jiao Jiao also celebrated my birthday on New Year's Eve." Xiaoheng smiled. He didn't argue with him. Instead, he stopped and rubbed his little head that had grown some hair. Let's go in. Early the next morning, little Jing Kong sat on the threshold. He waited from dawn to dusk. He waited until he became a light shui, but Jiao Jiao still didn't come back. Gu Yan walked over and led the little guy in. After midnight, it would be New Year's Eve. The army was still trapped in the snowy mountains of Zhangzhou. It was destined that they wouldn't come back this year. At night, the family sat by the fire in the central room. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door in the front yard. They were all startled. Jiao Jiao. Little Jing Kong was the first to rush out. However, it wasn't Gu Jiao Jiao who came. It was Granny Zhou. She came to deliver dumplings. Thank you, Granny Zhou. Little Jing Kong politely took the basket and thanked her. He carried the basket back to the central room. As soon as he sat down, there was another knock on the door. This time, it was Gu Xiaoshan who rushed out. Gu Yan also wanted to rush out, but he was a little sickly boy. He couldn't outrun the two of them. Unfortunately, it wasn't Gu Jiao Jiao this time. It was Aunt Lu. Aunt Lu came to deliver spring rolls. When the door was knocked on for the third time, Secret Guard A rushed out. He received a murderous look from his young master. Either he opened the door or he died. So cruel. Master Zhao, thank you. Secret Guard A carried the basket of duck eggs back to the central room. Everyone sighed in unison. The door of the courtyard was ajar. Gu Jiao Jiao didn't need to knock on the door to return to her own home. Therefore, everyone knew clearly that it wasn't Gu Jiao who came. However, they still couldn't help but look forward to it. Go to sleep. Xiaoheng said to everyone. Everyone returned to their own rooms with heavy hearts. It seemed that this New Year's Eve, Jiao Jiao really couldn't come back. Xiao Luleng tidied up the central room. He wasn't sleepy for the time being, so he went to the study to read for a while. It was still the letter of credence from the Yan Kingdom. He was almost halfway through it. However, he couldn't continue reading tonight. New Year's Eve used to be the most important day in his life. It was the day he came to this world, and it was also the day he died in that fire. Coincidentally, it was also midnight. Xiao Luleng looked at the hourglass on the wall. It was midnight again. He closed the book in his hand and went to the quiet courtyard. He looked at the swing that Gu Jiao personally made and was a little lost in thought. Dong. Something hit the door of the courtyard. Xiao Luleng came back to his senses. He frowned and walked towards the door. Senior servant Feng bolted the door before going to bed. Xiao Luleng paused for a moment and then took down the bolt. He opened the vermilion door, and a biting cold wind and snow poured in. After the wind and snow filled the sky, a small figure dressed in green sat against the wall on the threshold. One of her slender legs was bent, and the hand holding the horsewhip was on her knee. Her black hair was messed up by the wind and snow, and her lips were dry and cracked. She was covered in wind and rain and looked a little embarrassed. She leaned against the corner of the wall and gasped for breath. She raised her head and looked deeply at him with her eyes that were still clear despite being covered in wind and sand. The corners of her lips curved and she said, "Happy birthday, Lord Xiao." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found online are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/1091927220. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion mobile reading website. Chapter 524. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that can't be found online will be available here. When she said this, her chest rose and fell slightly. Although she tried her best to calm her breathing, she was still out of breath. It could be seen how hard she had been running all the way here. She didn't even have the strength to stand up, which was why she bumped into the door with a loud thud. She didn't want Xiao Heng to see her in such a sorry state, so she sat on the hard threshold with a calm look. She leaned against the cold corner of the wall, but she didn't know that her tiredness was written all over her face. Even so, when she looked at him, her eyes were still shining. The wind and snow were raging between heaven and earth, and the cold wind was whistling. Xiao Heng's heart seemed to be filled with a boiling heat wave. His blood was rushing rapidly, but he held his breath. He looked at her in disbelief, and his deep eyes clearly reflected her sorry figure. The snow in Ji City sealed the mountains, and the 100,000 soldiers were unable to advance. However, she crossed the mountains alone, braved the strong wind and cold snow, and appeared in front of him on his birthday. Xiao Heng was well-read and had a belly full of classics, but at this moment, he couldn't find the right words to describe his feelings. He suddenly felt a little upset, and even a little painful. He didn't say anything, but the look in his eyes said it all. It was just a birthday that he didn't care about. Why did she rush back? Why didn't she wait for the wind and snow to pass? Why didn't she go with the imperial court's army? Why, what else could it be? It was just something that he didn't care about, but someone cared about it for him. Xiao Heng's heart was moved, but there was no change in his expression. He quickly took off his outer robe, squatted down, and wrapped the outer robe with his body temperature around Gu Jiao's body. Gu Jiao's body was enveloped by a huge wave of warmth, followed by his unique manly aura and delicate fragrance. She sniffed and said with a little nasal voice that was frozen, "You smell so good." Xiao Heng looked at the tip of her nose, which was red from the cold. "You're so cold. Can you still smell my fragrance?" "Yes, it smells good," Gu Jiao said with certainty. Xiao Heng was originally looking at her disheveled appearance and thinking about the risks and hardships she had faced along the way. His mood was a little complicated and heavy, but after her interruption, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Xiao Heng brought in the red tasseled spear that she had placed beside her leg. He also untied her small basket. With one hand around her back and the other around her knees, he gently lifted her up. "I can go," Gu Jiao said. She didn't forget that he was still lame. When they were at home, she didn't even let him carry her in little Jing Kong. "I can leave too," Xiao Heng said. Gu Jiao blinked and looked at him. Xiao Heng stood up with her in his arms. She could feel the strength in his arms. Compared to when she left the capital, he was stronger and had the strength of a grown man. Gu Jiao looked at his legs again, and was surprised to find that he could walk very well. Gu Jiao made a sound of surprise. "Your legs aren't lame anymore?" "No." A certain person turned back into a little lame in a second. In reality, he had recovered a long time ago. After resolving the misunderstanding with Princess Xian Yang, he was able to walk freely the next day. He had originally planned on giving her a pleasant surprise on her birthday, but a certain girl had turned around and ran away. Very good. She had to pay the price. When Gu Jiao left the capital, it was autumn and she didn't wear much. Now that it was late winter, her cotton clothes didn't weigh much. Xiao Heng hugged her even tighter. The little guy at home was already 3 months old, and didn't need to drink milk at night. The wet nurse didn't need to live here anymore. Yao Shi brought the little guy back to their original room, and left the east room for Gu Jiao. Yuya came every day to clean it and change the bedding. Xiao Heng carried her into the room and placed her on a cushioned chair. "Sit for a while. I'll go burn a charcoal brazier for you." After saying this, he turned around and went to the kitchen. He lit some straw and firewood in the hearth. After they were burning, he put in the silver charcoal. The silver charcoal had been sent from the palace. It was all high-quality smokeless charcoal. It was very easy to light, and was very resistant to burning. While waiting for the silver charcoal to burn, he poured some water into the pot, and cooked a bowl of noodles with vegetables and egg. He also cut a few pieces of sausage and bacon. When the silver charcoal was done, the noodles were also ready. He carried the noodles to the east room. Gu Jiao lay on the table drowsily. She wasn't just tired. She was completely exhausted. Xiao Heng gently touched her forehead. It wasn't hot. He was slightly relieved and said, "Eat something first before you sleep." And Gu Jiao vaguely replied. She hadn't eaten anything for a day and night, and was indeed hungry. She gave a small yawn and picked up some vegetables with her chopsticks to put into her mouth. Then with a shudder she woke up. After Xiao Heng brought the brazier in, he remembered that there was still a horse outside. He went to lead the horse in and tied it to the old chancellor's stable. His movements were very light and didn't wake anyone up. When he returned to the east room, he saw that Gu Jiao was no longer sleepy. There was nothing that could be done. Her husband's dark cuisine was too refreshing. The effect was comparable to essential balm. Gu Jiao looked at her husband's handsome face. Adhering to the principle of being a feast for the eyes, she finished a bowl of noodles that tasted indescribable. There wasn't even a drop of soup left. Xiao Heng poured her a cup of warm water to dispel the grease. Was the journey hard? It wasn't hard. I'm not going to war. I'm just going to be a doctor. As soon as she finished speaking, a dagger fell out of her sleeve with a clang. It was the dagger of the Chen Guorong family. It was one of the spoils of war in ancient Moon City. Gu Jiao blinked. If I'm not embarrassed, it's others who are embarrassed. She bent down to pick up the dagger without changing her expression. With another clang, a sleeve arrow fell out. It was the hidden weapon of the Tang family's archers. It was one of Tang Yueshan's personal treasures. Her face didn't turn red, and her heart didn't skip a beat. She calmly picked up the sleeve arrow. Just as she put the arrow and dagger on the table, she accidentally touched the small basket. The small basket fell on the table, and the things inside fell out. Darts, battle axes, meteor hammers, 9-section whips. Xiao Heng's eyes became very dangerous. Gu Jiao rolled her eyes. Would you believe me if I said I picked them up? Xiao Heng, huh? I have something for you. Gu Jiao changed the topic in a second. She took out something tightly wrapped in cloth from the small basket and handed it to him. Open it and take a look. Xiao Heng still wanted to pursue the matter of her going to the battlefield. He originally thought that she went to the border to rescue the old duke who had fallen into the enemy's hands. However, it seemed that she had robbed the entire army of the Chun state. It was obvious that she had been on the battlefield a lot. Gu Jiao didn't give him a chance to pursue the matter. She decisively opened the bundle and handed him a book that exuded a historical aura. Xiao Heng's eyes were immediately attracted. The book was written in the language of the previous dynasty. The language of the current dynasty evolved from the language of the previous dynasty. The font and interpretation were slightly different. Gu Jiao opened the book. Xiao Heng took a closer look. It was filled with the names of the Huangfu family. His eyes paused. A jade disc from the previous dynasty. Yes. Gu Jiao nodded. She had burned down the prince consort's study. The prince consort thought that she had burned the jade disc as well, but she hadn't. She had stolen it. The Great Li dynasty had ruled for 300 years. After that, it had been secretly inherited for another 200 years. This Huangfu family genealogy recorded every member of the imperial family of the previous dynasty. It had great research and archaeological value. This kind of ancient book was as attractive to Hanlin officials as a divine weapon was to peerless experts. Xiao Heng's eyes moved slightly. How did you get it? Gu Chengfeng stole it. Gu Jiao immediately threw the blame to him. Gu Chengfeng, who was sleeping with his sword in the snow mountain, sneezed fiercely. Do you like it? Gu Jiao looked at him. Xiao Heng nodded. Yes, I like it. This book might have been exchanged with her life. How could he not like it? The book was very light, but it felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in his hands. Gu Jiao looked at him with a pair of clear and bright eyes. She looked somewhat obedient. If the soldiers of the Chun kingdom who had been killed by her were here, their jaws would drop. Was this still the cruel and cold-blooded god of death? This was a little white rabbit. And this? Gu Jiao took out a small metal box the size of a palm from her purse. I heard that the pine smoke ink of the Chun kingdom's imperial family is the best ink in the world. Try using it to draw. Green ink is not bad. Unfortunately, there are only 2 pieces. Prince Bo has a master who makes brushes. He made a new one for me. Gu Jiao continuously took out small gifts from the small basket on her back. He didn't know how many things she had in there. Xiao Heng stared at her deeply. Every time she took out a small gift, his eyes would deepen. After she took out a small gift for the umpteenth time, he finally couldn't hold it in anymore. He gently clasped one of her wrists and pulled her into his arms. Gu Jiao was caught off guard. Her small head bumped into his warm chest. His drumming heartbeat passed through the thick material of his clothes and into her ears. Her ears were burning from the sound of his thumping. The surroundings suddenly seemed to be quiet. Only each other's breathing and heartbeat could be heard. "Are you hurt?" he asked in a hoarse voice. Digression. Writer's block is a little bad. Get up tomorrow to write. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896422826/1091691111. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 525. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. If she wasn't injured, would he let me see the pentacle? Gu Jiao's eyes widened. She shook her head in his arms. No, absolutely not. Being sick doesn't count as being injured. She didn't lose a single hair. Xiao Heng felt the furry little head in his arms turn around, tickling his heart. He took a deep breath and held Gu Jiao's little shoulder to help her sit up straight. Then he looked into her eyes without blinking. You really aren't injured? Gu Jiao met his gaze calmly. I'm really not injured. She would never admit that she had almost died several times. She had even been frozen into a small ice sculpture on the ice field, and had fallen seriously ill. Didn't Xiao Heng know her well? Even if she poked a hole in the sky, she would never feel guilty. But she had changed the topic too quickly. It was impossible that nothing had happened on the frontier. Xiao Heng asked directly, "Where are you injured?" Xiao Heng asked directly. Gu Jiao wouldn't be tricked by him. I'm not injured anywhere. If you have the ability, you can guess that I was almost frozen into a small ice sculpture. Or that I almost died from a small epidemic. How could you guess? If she hadn't experienced it herself, Gu Jiao wouldn't have guessed it herself. Gu Jiao saw that he still didn't believe her. She simply spread her arms and leaned against the back of the chair. She used her trump card. Why don't you check it? Xiao Heng. Xiao Heng looked at her deeply. Suddenly, he stood up from his chair and leaned over her. He had one hand on the armrest of the chair, and his tall body pressed down on her. His other hand held onto her soft waist, and with a trace of a man's danger he said, "Are you sure you want me to check, Jiao Jiao?" That sound of Jiao Jiao made Gu Jiao's ears go limp. She stared blankly at his handsome face that was inches away from hers, feeling his scorching breath. The warmth of his palms was transmitted to her waist through the fabric of her clothes, and her originally cold waist seemed to be on fire in an instant. He didn't have much strength, but it was this kind of domineering and restrained feeling that made it hard for people to resist. Gu Jiao blinked her eyes. She suddenly reached out her hand and hugged his waist that was filled with masculine strength. He took a deep breath. "Jiao Jia Jia Jiao Jiao." Gu Jiao whispered, "Jiao Jiao wants it." "What?" He Jiao Jiao's voice. Gu Jiao hugged his waist tightly, and used the strength of her arm to gently lift her body. Their breaths were almost touching. Xiao Heng's large hand that was holding her slender waist suddenly tightened. He hugged her soft body. His arm supported her back, and his palm held the back of her head, not letting her feel any force. "Jiao Jiao, what do you want? Why aren't you saying anything? Are you shy?" Xiao Heng didn't wait for Gu Jiao's reply. He gently raised his head, and saw that Gu Jiao had fallen asleep leaning on his arm and palm. Xiao Heng. Gu Jiao was indeed exhausted. There was no need to mention how difficult it was to climb the snowy mountains. After leaving the mountains, she had to travel day and night without stopping. Every time she stopped at a relay station, She would change the strongest horse. However, the horse could be changed, but the rider could not be changed. She hadn't slept well for many days. Xiaoheng slowly carried her, and carefully placed her on the bed. In fact, she was so exhausted that she wouldn't wake up no matter what. Xiaoheng's movements were still gentle. Xiaoheng took off her shoes and coat, took off her hair tie, and pulled the quilt over her. He tucked in every corner of the quilt and wrapped her small body tightly. Then he looked at her emotionally, bent down, and gently kissed her forehead. At dawn, little Jing Kong woke up as usual. Bad brother-in-law wasn't around. This wasn't strange as his bad brother-in-law woke up earlier than him. Today was New Year's Eve. It was a pity that Jiao Jiao didn't come back. He was so listless that he didn't even bother to wear his new clothes. He slowly put on a set of old clothes and walked out with his head drooping. He habitually walked around Gu Jiao's room first before going to wash up. He was like a soulless puppet as he slowly walked into the room. He walked around the bed, turned around, and went out. He picked up a small toothbrush made of a ponytail in the backyard. As he brushed, his slow mind suddenly had an image. There was someone on the bed. Jiao Jiao. Yeah. Little Jing Kong didn't even want his small cup and toothbrush. He turned around and ran towards Gu Jiao's east room. At this time, Yao Shi, Gu Yan, and Gu Xiaoshan also came over from the east room's door. It wasn't strange for Yao Shi and Gu Xiaoshan to wake up early, but Gu Yan, who always liked to sleep in, also woke up. Probably because of the twins' reaction. Gu Yan actually woke up in the middle of the night. Then he went to Gu Jiao's side and lay down. Smelling his sister's scent and holding his sister's hand, he finally felt that the half of him that was cut off and taken away had returned to him. Little Jing Kong had just opened his mouth when Gu Yan covered his mouth. Little Jing Kong anxiously looked at Jiao Jiao, who was sleeping soundly on the bed. He grunted a few times and gave up struggling. Although he really wanted to Jiao Jiao, he couldn't make a fuss about Jiao Jiao. Let's go out first, Yao Shi whispered. Everyone nodded and reluctantly went to the central room to sit down. Nanny Fong excitedly walked in from the back door of the central room and asked in a low voice, I just heard the young master and Master Hui say that eldest miss is back. The old chancellor had been very worried about Gu Jiao, so after dawn, Xiaoheng first told Yao Shi the news of Gu Jiao's return, and then went to report to the old chancellor that she was safe. Yao Shi also couldn't hide the excitement in her heart. She nodded with a smile and said in a low voice, She's back. Nanny Fong put her hands together and said, Ba, thank the heavens. Before Gu Jiao left, she left a letter for the family. In the letter, she said that she was going to be a doctor. Except for Xiaoheng and Gu Yan, everyone else believed her. However, even if she was going to be a doctor, it was still very dangerous. In the land of war, even the old marquis was captured. Gu Jiao was only a girl, so protecting herself was the most worrying problem for everyone. Now that they saw that she was back safely, everyone's hanging hearts finally returned to their stomachs. Gu Jiao slept all the way until the afternoon. After running around for so long, she was in a trance when she opened her eyes. She almost thought that she had transmigrated again. Otherwise, how could she wake up in such a warm place? Then she saw 1, 2, 3, 4 little heads sticking in through the crack of the door. They were little Jing Kong, Gu Xiaoshan, Gu Yan, and Gu Xiaobao, who just turned 3 months old. Gu Xiaobao was held in front of Gu Yan's chest with both hands. His pair of black grape-like eyes were rolling around, and he was sucking on his fingers. The whole room was filled with the sound of his fingers sucking. Gu Jiao sat up. Little Jing Kong's eyes lit up. He pushed open the door with a bang, and was the first to rush to the bed. Jiao Jiao, you're awake. Gu Yan snorted and said, Head Jiao Jiao didn't wake up. She's sleeping. The stinky little monk ran so fast. Little Jing Kong ignored Brother Yan. Jiao Jiao was back, and he only talked to Jiao Jiao. Little Jing Kong came to the bedside and plunged into Gu Jiao's arms. He shook his little head cutely and said, Jiao Jiao, I missed you. I missed you so much. He just wanted to act cute, but as he did, he felt a lump in his throat. He felt wronged. He hadn't seen Jiao Jiao for so many days, and he felt that he had wasted his childhood. He wanted to start all over again in these 3 months. Your hair has grown long, Gu Jiao said. When he left, he still had a buzz cut. Now he had a small mushroom hairstyle. After the new year, he should be able to get a small ponytail. Yes. Little Jing Kong replied pitifully. He didn't want to talk about his hair now. Jiao Jiao, remember to bring me along the next time you go out. I want to go with you. Gu Yan walked in with Gu Xiaobao. He glanced at the little guy and said, "What do you think that is? Can a child go there?" Little Jing Kong stood up from Gu Jiao's arms and looked at Gu Yan with his hands on his hips. "I will grow up." Gu Yan loved to bicker with the little guy. "You can't go there even if you grow up. It's a war zone, and it's very dangerous. A weak scholar like you can only stay in the capital." These words successfully silenced little Jing Kong. Gu Yan thought that she had finally won the argument with the little fellow. Who would have thought that after a long while, little Jing Kong suddenly said in a hurt tone, "So did Jiao Jiao go to a very dangerous place?" He was a child, and his family wanted to protect him. Naturally, they wouldn't tell him that Gu Jiao went to a war zone. They only said that it was a frontier fortress. Gu Jiao also said so in the letter. Little Jing Kong thought that it was a very, very far away visit. Gu Yan didn't expect that his bickering with the little fellow would make a slip of the tongue. He cleared his throat and said, Okay, Jiao Jiao has returned safely. You don't have to worry anymore." He said it as if he wasn't worried. "Jiao Jiao." Little Jing Kong looked at Gu Jiao solemnly. Yes. Gu Jiao was a little confused by this sudden reaction. She wondered if the little guy was frightened. War was a very scary thing for such a young child. She was about to touch his little head to comfort him and tell him that she was really fine. Just like Gu Yan said, he didn't have to worry about her. Little Jing Kong suddenly looked at her and said very seriously, "Jiao Jiao, don't go to dangerous places in the future. If you must go, I'll go for you. If you must go to war, I'll fight for you." Digression. Little Jing Kong's feelings for Jiao Jiao were much deeper than Jiao Jiao thought. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/10916185 HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. Chapter 526. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more interesting content. The novel was updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels were free to read. There were all kinds of novels that could not be found online. Today was little Jing Kong's 5th birthday, if he was indeed born on New Year's Eve. It was already very brave of a 5-year-old child to have such intentions. "Fighting will hurt," Gu Jiao said. "You'll bleed and get hurt." Little Jing Kong suddenly became nervous. Then, "Jiao Jiao, are you hurt?" Gu Jiao was speechless for a moment. "I was just scaring you and asking you to beat the Tang clan. Why are you focusing on me?" Gu Jiao felt warm in her heart. It was a feeling that she had never experienced in her previous life, but she felt a lot more after coming here. Gu Jiao touched his little head and shook her head with a smile in his helpless eyes. "I'm not hurt." Phew, little Jing Kong heaved a long sigh of relief. After that, he patted his little chest and said like a little man, "I'm not afraid of pain, injury, or bleeding." He was afraid that he would not Jiao Jiao. He lowered his head and twirled his little fingers. Little Jing Kong grew up in the temple. The abbot, his master, and his senior brothers were all very good to him. But some things could not be made up in the temple. The gaps in his life were filled by Gu Jiao bit by bit. Gu Jiao could never imagine how important she was to him. The corners of Gu Jiao's lips curled up. "Jing Kong is really brave." Little Jing Kong was flattered. He raised his little chin and said, "Of course I'm the bravest little man in the family." Gu Yan snorted. "Little brat." Little Jing Kong stayed with Gu Jiao for a while. His little heart was comforted, and he happily went to the backyard to practice martial arts. Without the loudspeaker, The room was quiet. Gu Yan came to the bedside and sat down. There were only 3 of them left in the house. Little Jing Kong's combat power was equivalent to that of a regiment. Even if the 3 of them worked together, they wouldn't be as troublesome as him. For a moment, the atmosphere was particularly harmonious. Gu Jiao sat at the head of the bed and looked at the little munchkin in Gu Yan's hands. She made a sound of surprise and said, "This is little brother? You've grown so big?" Gu Xiaobao, call her sister. Gu Yan lowered her head and said to Gu Xiaobao. Perhaps because he heard his name, Gu Xiaobao stopped sucking on his fingers. He lifted his head to look at Gu Yan, then at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao was undoubtedly a stranger to Gu Xiaobao. However, Gu Xiaobao had a good temper. He usually didn't cry or make a fuss. When the neighbors came to hug or pinch him, he would give them face. Gu Yan placed Gu Xiaobao in Gu Jiao's arms. Indeed, he didn't cry. He just opened his big round eyes and drooled as he stared unblinkingly at Gu Jiao. Gu Xiaobao was chubby and the 2 lumps of meat on his face were heavy. He looked especially like a little Fua. Gu Jiao looked at his silly and adorable appearance and couldn't help but laugh. Gu Xiaobao was already 3 months old. He could actually recognize people. For example, he liked Yaoshi the most, followed by nannies. After all, they had milk to drink. When there was no milk to drink, Gu Xiaobao would eat his fingers. However, perhaps because he had never seen Gu Jiao before, Gu Xiaobao was a little confused. He was so confused that he forgot to eat his fingers. Then in the next second, he stuffed his favorite little finger, which even Gu Yan couldn't bear to give to him, into Gu Jiao's mouth. The 3 little men didn't occupy Gu Jiao for too long. This was because when the little monk went to the rear courtyard to practice, he deliberately shouted, "Jiao Jiao, wake up!" Thus Yao Shi, Nanny Fong, Yi and the old chancellor all put down their work and came over. Gu Jiao dressed neatly, washed up, and went to the central room. Yao Shi and the old chancellor sat at the table and watched her. Nanny Fong and Yu stood behind Yao Shi. Nanny Fong kept wiping her tears and cried even harder than Yao Shi. "Nanny, eldest miss is back." Yu whispered. Nanny Fong choked with sobs and said, "I know, I'm just happy. After looking forward to it for so many days, he finally came back, didn't he? We can finally have a good new year." When Gu Jiao was lying inside, Nanny Fong wasn't so emotional. However, when she saw Yao Shi holding Gu Jiao's hand with red eyes, she immediately couldn't hold it in anymore. Yao Shi was still trying to hold it in. She held back her tears and touched her daughter's cheek, saying, "You've lost weight." Her face was also red from the cold. It wasn't as white and glossy as when she was in the capital. It could be seen that she had suffered a lot in the past 3 months. Yao Shi was very distressed. She asked Gu Jiao about what happened at the frontier fortress. Gu Jiao only said that everything was fine. The war was over, the city was taken back, the border of Zhao country was defended, and the old Marquis and Princess Ning were saved. How many soldiers died, how much they paid, how many people lost their homes, and how many times she narrowly escaped death. She didn't mention these. Yao Shi also knew that her daughter only reported the good news and not the bad, so she didn't force her. She smiled and wiped away her tears, saying, "It's the new year, let's not talk about this. It's good that you're back. Your grandfather and 2 older brothers are all right, right?" Everyone in the capital knew that Gu Chongqing had been ordered to go up north. Although Gu Qingfeng had slipped out, he had caused Marquis Gu to suffer a beating. When Marquis Gu looked back, he knew that this fellow had gone up north to find the old Marquis. Gu Jiao nodded. "They're all well." All 3 of them were injured, but they were recovering well. Gu Qingfeng was the most resistant to beatings, and was the first to recover. Gu Chongqing's injury was also not a big problem. Now only the old Marquis still needed to recuperate. After returning to the capital, he would do rehabilitation with Tang Yushan. Yao Shi looked at Gu Xiaobao, who was being shaken back and forth by Gu Yan. She gently said to Gu Jiao, "When your grandfather comes back, let's go to the residence to see him." He was a sworn brother, so he had to visit him. Yao Shi and her daughter had endless things to talk about. Until Gu Xiaobao was hungry, she then carried Gu Xiaobao to feed him. The old chancellor also asked about the situation at the frontier. He was not as easy to fool as those at home. He was once exiled to the frontier for 5 years because of Zhuang Jin's, so he knew how hard it was at the frontier. Sigh, it's been hard on you. The old chancellor sighed. You don't know how much Aheng misses you. He comes to the palace every 2 to 3 days. The officials think he can't wait to climb up the ranks. In fact, it's all to inquire about the news at the frontier. Xiao Heng just came out of the study and happened to hear the old chancellor's words. Gu Jiao also happened to look at him. He didn't know whether to advance or retreat. He cleared his throat and said, I'm concerned about the military situation. Gu Jiao. Oh. The old chancellor asked about the remnants of the previous dynasty. Prince Yi and the prince consort are really dead? Gu Jiao nodded. The prince consort was killed by Gu Changqing. Prince Yi died of illness. The power of the previous dynasty should be completely disintegrated. The old chancellor asked, what's going on in Qin country? How did Yuan Tang escape from the capital and surrendered to the Gu army? Their military strength is above the Gu army. There's no need for them to surrender without a fight, right? Could it be a conspiracy? The old chancellor couldn't be blamed for being so cautious. Everything that happened in Qin country was too unbelievable. Besides, Xiao Heng didn't tell the old chancellor that he was the one who let Yuan Tang out of the capital. As for the friendship between Yuan Tang and Gu Jiao, the old chancellor didn't know anything about it. Surrender was what Zhao country called it. In fact, it was a truce between the two armies. Qin country had more military strength than the Gu army by 40,000, but the morale of Qin country was not as good as that of the Gu army. Moreover, Qin country had serious internal strife. The war caused the national treasury to be in deficit. They couldn't afford it. The old chancellor thought, what's going on with the Rong family? Their sister is the imperial concubine, but they went to help Prince Bo? Gu Jiao said, because the monarch doesn't want to make imperial concubine Rong the empress. There was a letter in the brocade box that Yuan Tang gave to Gu Jiao. It explained the reason for the Rong family's betrayal. It turned out that the monarch of Qin country thought highly of the Rong family and loved imperial concubine Rong and her son. He secretly wrote an imperial edict to make imperial concubine Zhangde the empress and make her son the crown prince. Noble consort Rong told the Rong family about this news. Noble consort Rong's original intention was that her father and brother could make a decision for her, whether by coercion or enticement, to make the king of Qin retract his decree and make her empress instead. Who would have thought that at this time, Prince Bo came to the door? He came to propose marriage for his only son, Rong Yao's daughter. As long as he became the king, Rong Yao's daughter would be the rightful crown princess. In addition, he also promised a lot of power and land to the Rong family. He was much more generous than the monarch of Qin country. However, the Rong family had enough of the days of being at the mercy of others. Instead of supporting others to be the emperor, they would rather be the emperor themselves. Imperial concubine Rong had a younger son who was less than 5 years old. It didn't matter if Yuan Tang died. They would support the 5-year-old 9th prince to ascend the throne. After that, they would let the 9th prince abdicate in the Rong family. That way, the Rong family would be able to rule the world. Prince Bo came to the Rong family to ask a tiger for its skin. In the end, he died under Rong Yao's sword. After this incident, the monarch aged 10 years overnight and never mentioned making imperial concubine Zhangde the empress again. Yuan Tang also didn't force the monarch to make him the crown prince. Yuan Tang just told the monarch that he was determined to be the crown prince, whether the monarch gave it to him or he took it himself. The monarch was poisoned by Prince Bo and was almost dead. How could he fight against Yuan Tang, who was at the peak of his power? If nothing unexpected happened, the next time Yuan Tang went to Zhao country, he would be the crown prince of Qin country. After hearing Gu Jiao's explanation, old chancellor let out a long sigh. The royal family doesn't have any kinship. It's the same no matter which royal family it is. However, this Yuan Tang really makes people have a whole new level of respect for him. Fortunately, he wasn't an enemy. Speaking of Yuan Tang, Gu Jiao remembered the thing Yuan Tang asked her to bring to Lu Yisheng. I'll go out later. Gu Jiao said. Jiao Jiao, where are you going? Little Jing Kong ran in sweating. Gu Jiao looked at him in a panic and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Aren't you practicing martial arts? Have you been eavesdropping on our conversation? I didn't eavesdrop. You were so loud. Little Jing Kong rubbed his small hands guiltily. Well, he did eavesdrop a little. But he didn't do it on purpose, and he didn't understand. He was just worried that Jiao Jiao would suddenly leave without saying goodbye. Since Gu Jiao had returned, she naturally had to enter the palace to report to her grandaunt that she was safe. She had thought about it. After reporting to her grandaunt, she would go to Lu Yixing's place to give Yuan Tang's gift to him. Jiao Jiao, can I go with you? Little Jing Kong asked cutely. Okay. Gu Jiao rubbed his mushroom head. His hair was soft and comfortable to rub. Little Jing Kong stretched his small head. Jiao Jiao, if you like, you can always rub it. It doesn't matter if you rub it until it's bald. Xiao Heng walked over with his cane and said calmly, I happen to have a memorial from the Ministry of Rites to present to His Majesty. Let's go to the palace together. The old chancellor's mouth twitched. Presenting a memorial to His Majesty on New Year's Day? Could it be any more ridiculous? Unfortunately, only the old chancellor knew about the imperial court. The rest of the family didn't. Bad brother-in-law, why do you have to go too? Little Jing Kong suddenly felt a little resentful. When the three of them arrived at the carriage, they were surprised to find that there were already 3 people sitting inside. Gu Yan, Gu Xiaoshun, and Gu Xiaobao, who was 3 months old. Gu Jiao. More strange tales, more, but in the end Yaosher stopped all the small tales. The reason was that the carriage wasn't big enough to fit so many people. But it was unfair to let any of the small tales come down, so she decided not to let any of them go. And Xiao Heng perfectly avoided the fate of being kept at home by Yaosher because of the official excuse of the memorial. The 4 small faces expressionlessly watched the 2 of them get into the carriage. But what no one expected was that before Gu Jiao and Xiao Heng set off, Grandaunt's carriage arrived. Grandaunt hadn't received the news that Gu Jiao was back. She came to celebrate Xiao Heng and little Jing Kong's birthday. Without Gu Jiao, the 2 little brats must be very sad. So she used illness as an excuse to cancel the palace banquet. It's Grandaunt. Grandaunt is here. As soon as little Jing Kong's voice was heard, Xiao Heng and Gu Jiao got off the carriage. Eunuch Qin also got off the carriage. He lifted the curtain for Empress Dowager Zhuang. Empress Dowager Zhuang bowed and walked out. Halfway, Eunuch Qin's hand shook and the curtain fell with a bang, slapping Empress Dowager Zhuang's face. Empress Dowager Zhuang. Qin. Slapping my face on New Year's Day. You and your group of little bastards don't want to live anymore. Empress Dowager Zhuang wanted to see blood today. Miss Gu. Eunuch Qin was stunned. Empress Dowager Zhuang lifted the curtain with a whoosh. She was so angry that she wanted to sacrifice Eunuch Qin and his group of little bastards to the heavens. However, the moment she saw Gu Jiao, her anger was extinguished. Qin Huai. Her gaze fell on Gu Jiao's face, and she called Eunuch Qin's name. Empress Dowager. Eunuch Qin came back to his senses. Empress Dowager Zhuang gave him a slap on the forehead. Eunuch Qin. Does it hurt? Empress Dowager Zhuang asked. I don't dare to hurt. Eunuch Qin said in fear and trepidation. Empress Dowager Zhuang dusted her sleeves and sighed. Then it hurts. Very good, you're not dreaming. Eunuch Qin. Grandaunt. Gu Jiao walked over. Empress Dowager Zhuang always dressed up like an old lady when she came to buy Shui Alley. She didn't look extravagant at all. Even her carriage was no different from a commoner's carriage. But the stool was a little steep, so someone had to hold it. Eunuch Qin hurriedly stretched out his arm. Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at him with disgust. Eunuch Qin's eyes flashed and he tactfully retreated to the side. Gu Jiao helped Empress Dowager Zhuang down. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't wait to enter the courtyard. She looked at Gu Jiao at the door. Gu Jiao's change was obvious. She wasn't a girl who was pampered in the boudoir. She suffered a lot in the wind and rain. Even so, when she came back from the frontier fortress, Empress Dowager Zhuang almost didn't dare to recognize her. Needless to say, she was thin and tanned. Her cheeks were red from the cold, and her lips were a little chapped. She was in the best age of a young girl. In Empress Dowager Zhuang's eyes, she was still beautiful and heroic. Moreover, she had a strength that was not inferior to the men of Zhao country. Empress Dowager Zhuang thought of countless words that she would say to Gu Jiao when she came back. But when she saw her, Empress Dowager Zhuang found that she couldn't say a single word. Thousands of emotions were stuck in her heart. She took a deep breath, held back the tears in her eyes, and patted Gu Jiao's hand. "It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back." Gu Jiao took her grandaunt's hand. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't say anything. She just held Gu Jiao's hand tightly. Just as Empress Dowager Zhuang was immersed in the strong emotions of regaining Gu Jiao, another carriage suddenly came into the alley. The curtain of the carriage was lifted, and a figure with an impressive dragon aura bowed and walked out. He saw Empress Dowager Zhuang at the door and was startled. "Mother? Mother, aren't you recuperating in Renshou Palace? Why did you secretly come to Baishui Alley?" Empress Dowager Zhuang choked and squinted at him. "Didn't you say that you were in seclusion to pray for the soldiers? Then why did you come to Baishui Alley?" "I was." The emperor was just about to say that he secretly came out to get some fresh air, when he saw the small figure hidden behind Empress Dowager Zhuang. He opened his eyes wide and walked over. "Little magic doctor? You're back?" "Yes, I'm back. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Gu Jiao said. The emperor looked at her, and also felt that she was fine. She was full of vitality. He said happily, "It's good that you're fine. You finally came back safely. Mother won't ignore me anymore." Empress Dowager Zhuang's mouth twitched and her face darkened. She didn't realize that blaming you for taking Jiao Jiao to the frontier was just an excuse. "I just simply didn't want to talk to you." The emperor didn't receive any disdain from his mother at all. He was very happy. First, his mother finally wanted to talk to him. Second, the little magic doctor came back safely. The little magic doctor also contributed to the victory of the frontier fortress. He wanted to reward her. The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428226/10914563. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. Chapter 527. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more exciting content. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are available here. At the palace banquet on New Year's Eve, the Emperor and Empress Dowager Zhuang left together, leaving only Empress Xiao and the Crown Prince to preside over the situation. They invited Princess Xinyang and other members of the royal family to celebrate the victory at the border and welcome the new year. This was really the first time since the beginning of the world. The emperor entered the courtyard without any psychological pressure. Wherever his mother was, he would be there. Eunuch Wei looked at his emperor with a complicated expression. Ever since His Majesty believed that he had taken the knockout drug, His Majesty had gone on the road of self-indulgence, never to return. Should he remind His Majesty that he had only taken a hair growth pill? "Mother, I'm coming." The emperor immediately became Empress Dowager Zhuang's little tail. Eunuch Wei covered his eyes. "Damn it. I can't look anymore." Gu Jiao originally wanted to go to the palace to tell her grandaunt that she was safe. Since her grandaunt was here, she didn't have to go through so much trouble. Gu Jiao and her grandaunt entered the central room. She didn't observe carefully before. Now that she accompanied her grandaunt to walk around the house, she found that the house had changed a lot in the 3 months that she had been away. The vegetable garden in the front yard was expanded and planted with shallots and radishes. The small fish pond opposite the vegetable garden was filled and replaced with a big fish tank. This was proposed by little Jing Kong. He said that he had a younger brother in the house, and that his younger brother should have a place to play. Even though his younger brother was still so young, he still contributed his small fish pond without hesitation. Also, the passage from the backyard to the next house was no longer a passage. The wall had been completely pushed down. Now the backyard of the two houses was connected and became a large courtyard. Granduncle bought that house. Seeing Gu Jiao look at the connected courtyard in astonishment, Xiaoheng whispered to her. "It's not cheap." Gu Jiao murmured. Xiaoheng nodded. Yes, it cost 1,000 taels. It wasn't so expensive before. But since a new top scorer appeared, Pushui Alley gained the title of Top Scorer Alley. The land price and housing prices soared. This 1,000 taels was a friendly price. Gu Jiao asked curiously, "Young master, where did you get so much money?" If she remembered correctly, the salary of the Imperial College's chancellor wasn't that high. Xiaoheng pursed his lips. Just selling an official position. Gu Jiao. Great-uncle is doing this kind of thing. The old chancellor's operation of selling his official position was like this. First, he would release the news that he wanted to buy a residence. Then there would be people with bad intentions who would come to his door and bribe him with a huge sum of money. The old chancellor directly carried gold to the emperor's imperial study and told the emperor with righteous indignation, "I, Huxian, have been honest all my life. I have pledged my loyalty to the emperor without any disloyalty. You actually want to bribe me? What wishful thinking." This humble subject swears that even if all the civil and military officials in the imperial court are bribed, this humble subject will not be bribed. The old chancellor's last words successfully made the emperor ponder deeply. The emperor had encountered a lot of things since he took over the government. Suddenly, he understood some of Empress Dowager Zhuang's decisions in the past. The emperor and Empress Dowager Zhuang were completely different in the way of using people. The emperor couldn't tolerate sand in his eyes. He needed to use people with integrity, such as the old duke and the old chancellor. Only Marquis Xianping was a bit dissolute, but he never violated the law and ethics. Empress Dowager Zhuang was more open-minded. She paid attention to using people's strengths and tolerating their shortcomings. The most typical example was Tang Yueshan. Tang Yueshan was a person who liked to achieve great things. His uncle and sister-in-law were not good. If it were the emperor, he would never put him in an important position. However, after the battle at the frontier fortress, the emperor suddenly felt that Tang Yueshan was more good than bad. The emperor began to think about Empress Dowager Zhuang's way of regent, and found that there were many things that he could learn from her. When the water was too clear, there would be no fish. For example, it was impossible to get rid of the system that had been passed down from their ancestors. It had shaken the interests of too many nobles and scholar officials. However, Empress Mother had used a 6-part assessment system to easily solve the problem. Although there would still be officials, it would reduce the mediocre qualifications of the officials and the length of time they would be in office. This was a perfect balance. The emperor felt that the matter of buying officials would exist no matter what. The old chancellor refused, but it was hard to guarantee that the other party wouldn't find another one. Instead of finding an unknown official, it was better to have the old chancellor agree. This way, at least he would know which officials were bought. Everything would be under his control. When the court was completely stable, he would catch this group of people in one fell swoop. Therefore, with the emperor's permission, the old chancellor openly accepted bribes and bought the big house next to the top scholar's house. Empress Dowager Zhuang and the emperor sat down in the central room. Both of them had many things to say to Gu Jiao. The old chancellor quietly went to the kitchen to make brown sugar glutinous rice cake. Xiaoheng planned to help his teacher, but he was mercilessly rejected by the old chancellor. Did he not know how good his cooking skills were? "Aheng, come and help put up the couplets," Yaosher said with a smile. "Okay." Xiaoheng walked out, carrying a bucket of paste. He brought a few young men from the family to put up the couplets at the door. Empress Dowager Zhuang did not bring up the matter of the battlefield. Those matters could be brought up after the new year. She talked about the matters in the village. The eunuchs and guards she sent to Qingquan village saw Xuenningxiang. The matter of Zhou Erzhuang and Headley asking to marry Xuenningxiang at the same time caused a huge commotion in the surrounding villages. Ningxiang was a young widow. Many people in the countryside looked down on her. But there were some with bad intentions who wanted to taint her. Originally, when Gu Jiao's family and Mother Zhou were all present, those vile people could still restrain themselves. Later on, Gu Jiao's family left. Mother Zhou passed away. Gu Yan's 2 hidden guards also returned to the capital. Ningxiang's situation became difficult. There was once when she was sleeping in the middle of the night. A ruffian from the neighboring village actually climbed over the wall and entered her room. He pressed her down on the bed and bullied her. It was only when Gowa woke up and cried too loudly that the villagers came that the ruffian did not succeed. There was no way to hide news in the countryside. What happened in the night spread throughout the village the next day. That ruffian was called Li Dezhu. His wife went to Ningxiang's house the next day and had a big argument. She cursed Ningxiang as a fox spirit, a lowly hussy, a little whore. She stripped naked in the sorghum field and seduced her man. She even told her man to go find her in the middle of the night. Ningxiang went from being a victim to a fox spirit who seduced people. It was hard to explain. There were many similar incidents. Ningxiang never mentioned it in the letter. If Empress Dowager Zhuang's people didn't go to the countryside, they wouldn't know that Ningxiang had suffered so many grievances. Luoli was protecting Ningxiang. But the more he protected her, the more gossip there was. In the end he, as Li Zheng, became an outsider. After Dean Li learned of this matter, he wanted to bring Ningxiang to town. At this time, Zhou Erzwang came back. It was unknown how the matter became known to everyone. In short, the whole village knew that Ningxiang was fancied by their brother-in-law and the dean of Tianxiang Academy. To be exact, they believed that Ningxiang had seduced them. Ningxiang was scolded miserably. Her maternal family, who was 100 li away, also received the news. They came to catch Ningxiang and scolded her. Sometimes human nature was like this. After seeing Ningxiang struggle in the mire, they didn't want to see her climb out of it. In many people's eyes, a widow who cursed her husband to death should be spurned by others. What right did she have to live a life above others? Of course, there was a way to solve all of this. People dared to scold a stone that blocked the road, but almost no one scolded the mountains in front of and behind the village. Empress Dowager Zhuang directly turned Ningxiang into the tallest mountain in the village. My family's Empress Dowager wants to invite Lady Xue to the capital. As soon as the eunuch said this, the people in the surrounding villages directly knelt down. The highest official they knew was the county magistrate. What was the Empress Dowager? She was a bodhisattva, a Buddha, and the heavens. She was a powerful existence that could take the lives of their entire village with a single finger. No, she didn't even need to use a finger. Everyone's gaze toward Ningxiang changed from jealousy to fear. They couldn't afford to be jealous. Of course, Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't really want to force Ningxiang to the capital. She just said that to support her. The people sent by Empress Dowager Zhuang told Ningxiang that with the Empress Dowager's support, she didn't need to be afraid of anything. Even if she wanted to marry 8 to 10 husbands, no one would dare gossip about her. Ningxiang was frightened by these rebellious words. What 8 to 10 husbands? She didn't have such thoughts. However, after such a conversation, Ningxiang's courage grew by quite a bit. Zhou Erzwang and Headmaster Li were both very outstanding men. In another 10 or 20 years, perhaps Ningxiang would choose the high-spirited young man, Zhou Erzwang. However, she was only 2 years older than Gu Jiao. At this age, she was carrying a bumpy experience, so she was more inclined towards Headmaster Li, who was like a father to her. He was mature and steady, he was considerate and meticulous, he treated people with tolerance, and he also had money. Moreover, Zhou Erzwang was Ningxiang's younger brother-in-law. Ningxiang couldn't get over this hurdle in her heart. Finally, and most importantly, she was a mother. Sometimes, it wasn't the man who restrained a woman, but the child. Gowa liked Headmaster Li and confusedly recognized him as her father. What else could she do as her mother? Old Madame Li's love for Ningxiang and Gowa was a plus. To put it bluntly, Ningxiang was tired and wanted to find a man she could rely on to live the rest of her life peacefully. Empress Dowager Zhuang understood Ningxiang's choice. In this world, Not everyone could be as strong as Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao was unique. She never sought a sense of security from anyone. Her heart was strong enough and full of strength. Of course, this came with a price. She wasn't born strong, but there were too many things that she needed to carry with her young shoulders. Jiao Jiao, she carried all of them. Xue Ningxiang didn't need to become the second Jiao Jiao. She could live her life comfortably. In addition, Xue Ningxiang wrote a letter to Gu Jiao. Empress Dowager Zhuang always kept it in her purse when she played cards. She gave the letter to Gu Jiao. This time, Xue Ningxiang didn't report the good news or the bad news. After all, Empress Dowager Zhuang's people already knew everything. There was no point in hiding it. In the letter, she asked about the Empress Dowager's situation. Why did the Empress Dowager know her? Was it because Xiao Lulang, the new top scorer, was doing too well in the capital? Or was it because Gu Jiao and the Marquise mentioned that the Empress Dowager's people were alarmed? Xue Ningxiang thought that she didn't have that much face. Could it be that the old lady with leprosy is the Empress Dowager? I don't have that luck. Then, didn't I cook for the Empress Dowager? The Empress Dowager also helped me look after my baby? It can't be. My ancestral grave doesn't emit smoke. Gu Jiao thought for a while and replied. Do you want to go back to your ancestral grave? Jiao Jiao. Jiao Jiao. Little Jingkong ran over with a letter in his hand. He was originally pasting couplets. When he suddenly saw Gu Jiao reading the letter, he remembered that he also had a letter. Children were like this. Jiao Jiao, Brother Ming sent me the second letter. Do you want to show it to me? Gu Jiao asked. A letter was a very private thing. Gu Jiao wouldn't casually open little Jingkong's letter just because he was a child. But if he wanted to share it with her, Gu Jiao would gladly accept. Yes. I want to show it to you, Jiao Jiao. Little Jingkong nodded. Gu Jiao opened the letter. It was full of greetings between children. Little Jingkong mentioned some interesting things about his family and the Imperial College in the last letter, which successfully aroused Ming's interest in learning. Ming told little Jingkong that he also went to the Imperial College to study. However, he was going to the martial arts class. The Imperial College of the Liang Kingdom was slightly different from that of the Zhao Kingdom. It was divided into civil and martial arts classes. It was probably because the Liang Kingdom's imperial examination not only included civil, but also military examinations. When little Jingkong read the letter for the first time, he didn't feel much. Now that he read it again with Gu Jiao, he suddenly felt very envious of Brother Ming. He also wanted to learn martial arts. He wanted to protect Jiao Jiao. Along with the second letter was the thank you gift about the music score of Reflection that Ming mentioned in the first letter. The letter was sent by Eagle, so it came quickly. The thank you gift was carried by horse carriages, so it took a long time. The thank you gift was prepared by Princess Yu and her husband. It was some specialties of the Liang Kingdom, and more than a dozen children's toys. They were quite thoughtful. In addition, Princess Yu knew that little Jingkong was talented and smart, and was learning different languages. She specially selected 10 books that were only available in the Shangguan Kingdom, which were suitable for little Jingkong's level. Xiao Heng made a plan for little Jingkong. He read a little every day and improved a lot in the 3 Shangguan Kingdom subjects. In order to prove his improvement, little Jingkong jumped off the chair and ran back to the room. He took his 3 Shangguan Kingdom poetry books and said, Jiao Jiao, I'll recite them to you. He put his little hands behind his back and began to recite them while shaking his head. It was as if Gu Jiao could understand him. It was Gu Jiao's first time traveling. In the past, it was Xiao Heng who went out. Every time he came back, Xiao Heng could feel the changes at home. This time, it was Gu Jiao's turn to feel the changes. Gu Xiaobao had grown up, Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshan had grown taller, little Jingkong had grown hair, and he could recite many Shangguan Kingdom poetry books. This feeling was quite novel. Dinner was not ready so quickly, but the hot water was ready first. Yao Shi asked the children to bathe. Quickly finish bathing and wash your clothes. There's no need to wash clothes on the first day of the Lunar New Year, Yao Shi said. I'll go bathe first. Little Jingkong turned into an obedient baby who loved bathing. He had forgotten how much he hated bathing during the 3 months when Gu Jiao was not around. Jiao Jiao, go bathe too, Yaoshi said gently to Gu Jiao. Okay, Gu Jiao agreed. The hot water was only enough for 2 people to bathe. The rest of them had to wait for the next batch. Brother-in-law, thank you. Please help me bathe. Little Jing Kong came to the door and said politely to Xiaoheng, who was pasting the couplets. Xiaoheng's mouth twitched. Heh, that's not what you said the last time. If I dare to catch you to bathe again, what are you going to do? Run away from home. Cough. Little Jing Kong cleared his throat, spread his hands and said helplessly, who hasn't been young and frivolous? Xiaoheng. Xiaoheng brought little Jing Kong to the west room to bathe. The charcoal fire in the west room was burning brightly, so it was not cold. Gu Jiao also went to bathe. She realized that there was a new wooden bucket at home. It was big and deep. When she sat down, her whole body could be submerged in the water. Phew! It was too comfortable. Her little toes bounced under the water. After bouncing for a while, she suddenly thought of something. She came back unscathed. Shouldn't her husband fulfill his promise to her? When Xiaoheng came out of the west room, he saw that Gu Jiao had finished bathing and washing her hair. She was sitting warmly in the central room. Xiaoheng was slightly surprised. So fast. Little Jing Kong was still playing with water in the wooden bucket. The water was a little cold, so he went to the kitchen to get some hot water for little Jing Kong. Gu Jiao looked at him with her eyes wide open. Empress Dowager Zhuang went to the kitchen to eat brown sugar glutinous rice cake, and the emperor followed her. Only Gu Jiao was left in the central room. The sky was a little dark, but Gu Jiao's eyes were so bright that it was impossible to ignore them. Why are you looking at me like that? Xiaoheng asked. I'm not hurt, Gu Jiao said. Yes, I know. Xiaoheng nodded. After saying that, he realized something. He was startled, his eyelashes trembled, and his cheeks began to heat up. Gu Jiao looked at him with her hands on her cheeks. It was an expectant look. Digression. Can I ask for a wave of monthly votes? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels can be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/1091233694. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 528. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. After taking a bath in Little Jing Kong, it was Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshuan's turn. Gu Xiaobao also let Nanny Fong carry him to take a fragrant New Year's Eve bath. Gu Jiao, she's not in a hurry. Yes, she's not in a hurry. It's done. Madame Yao walked in from the back door of the central room with a smile. Gu Jiao stood up immediately. Xiaoheng, who was pasting couplets in the eastern room, choked. Madame Yao smiled and said, "The New Year's Eve dinner is ready. Let's eat first." Gu Jiao. Oh. Xiaoheng let out a sigh. This kind of thing was embarrassing. He agreed so quickly because the atmosphere was so warm. He couldn't just refuse such a small request when she was about to go to war. It was quite embarrassing when he thought about it. Moreover, he didn't expect that someone would really take this kind of thing to heart. She couldn't forget it even after thinking about it for 3 months. This was too. Xiaoheng cleared his throat and glanced at Gu Jiao from the corner of his eyes. Gu Jiao had been looking at him the whole time. She was caught red-handed by him. However, Gu Jiao didn't look away guiltily. Instead, she smiled at him. Xiaoheng. It seemed that he really couldn't be a human tonight. Although he was the one being stared at, it wasn't that he didn't want to. Therefore, strictly speaking, he took advantage of her. Xiaoheng. Xiaoheng, you're only 19 but you want to be a beast. There were many people in the house, so they had to put together 2 tables to sit down. The New Year's Eve dinner was very sumptuous. There were cured meat and sausages from their own house, fried meatballs and eggplant from the neighbors, and a slaughtered chicken. It wasn't their own, but it was bought from the market. However, it still scared the chickens at home for a while. Other than that, the old chancellor also made braised small yellow croaker, mushroom duck soup, smoked bamboo shoot slices, of course. Little Jing Kong's vegetarian dishes and steamed eggs with shrimp were also included. As New Year's Eve was also the birthday of Xiao Hung and Little Jing Kong, the old chancellor had specially cooked 2 bowls of longevity noodles, one big and one small, for the 2 of them. Just a day ago, this family was still worried. Only after Gu Jiao returned did they finally have the feeling of a New Year's reunion. It was not the first time the emperor had eaten at Jadewater Lane, but it was the first time he had eaten New Year's Eve dinner. He looked at the dishes on the table that were not even worth mentioning compared to the palace banquet. He did not know if it was because the dishes were too shabby, but he actually felt a little sour in his nose after eating. He suddenly remembered the time when his mother was in the cold palace. It was also New Year's Eve when he and Ning climbed over the wall to find his mother. At that time, he saw his mother sitting alone in the cold, dilapidated room. There wasn't even a decent pot of silver charcoal. He took out the pastries and chicken legs that he had stolen with great difficulty and handed them to his mother. Unexpectedly, the pastries were crushed, and the chicken legs fell to the ground. He did not cry when he climbed over the wall and fell, but when he was chased and beaten by the palace servants and realized that his mother might have to starve on New Year's Eve, he cried out loud. He had forgotten all these things after being bewitched by concubine Jing, but he remembered more and more recently. He felt more and more guilty towards his mother. Your Majesty? Eunuch Wei, who was helping to carry the dishes, looked at the emperor with a panicked expression. The emperor's tears could not be stopped. He stubbornly choked and said, "I'm fine. It's the effect of that white medicine acting up again." Eunuch Wei. Everyone. After eating the New Year's Eve dinner, the emperor remembered many things from his childhood. He deeply understood how much damage he had done to his mother during those years when he and his mother became enemies. He had even caused his mother to contract leprosy. What kind of crazy behavior was that? Fortunately, his mother met the little divine doctor. If it wasn't for the little divine doctor's miraculous hands and benevolence, he might have regretted it for the rest of his life. After the New Year's Eve dinner, he found Gu Jiao chopping firewood and boiling water in the kitchen. "I've thought about it. I want to thank you properly," the emperor said solemnly. Gu Jiao looked at the emperor strangely. The emperor said sincerely, "If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have been able to reunite with my mother. Also, if it wasn't for you, the war at the border wouldn't have gone so smoothly." Why was he talking about the war? The emperor's thoughts wandered a little. From Gu Jiao's kindness to Empress Dowager Zhuang, he thought of Gu Jiao's various actions at the border. "I've heard about what happened at the border. In order to save your grandfather, you and Gu Qingfeng went deep into the remnants of the previous dynasty. In the end, you were chased by the previous dynasty's army and almost died to the emperor's son-in-law's arrow. After that, you unfortunately contracted the plague for the sake of the plague victims in Lingguan City. After that, you went to kill the emperor's son-in-law's men of sacrifice for your eldest brother, but you were frozen into an ice sculpture on the icy plains. You also contracted lung disease from the cold, coughed up blood, and fainted," the emperor said with heartache. As he spoke, he suddenly felt a chill at the back of his head. A terrifying aura was coming from behind him. The emperor was the son of heaven. His aura was very strong and ordinary people couldn't compare to it. It could be seen how cold the other party's aura was to make him tremble. Gu Jiao also felt it. She turned her head and saw that Xiao Hung had come to the backyard at some point. He was staring at her with a burning gaze. He didn't say anything, but his eyes clearly said everything. She had been chased crazily and almost died to the emperor's son-in-law's arrow. She had contracted the plague and was almost frozen into an ice sculpture. She had also contracted lung disease, coughed up blood, and fainted. Xiao Heng's eyes flashed with 2 balls of anger, but the aura around him was extremely cold. Gu Jiao heard little Fuli's small voice saying goodbye in her ear. She decided to make a final struggle. I didn't. The emperor didn't know that he had caused Gu Jiao to lose her horse. He patted Gu Jiao's small shoulder and said, all right, don't deny it. This one has already seen the military report from the border. This one knows that you don't have a flamboyant personality. Don't worry, this one won't tell anyone. Gu Jiao clenched her small fists. You've already said it to the person you shouldn't say it to the most. Xiaoheng narrowed his eyes dangerously. He little liar. At this time, the emperor finally noticed Xiaoheng in the yard. Xiaoheng leaned on his cane and walked towards Gu Jiao with a cold expression. He was here to denounce Gu Jiao. The emperor's gaze fell on his small crippled leg and cane. He asked with a strange voice, Didn't you say that your leg has already recovered? Why are you still using this? Yuya who was in the woodshed, covered her mouth. She didn't mean it. She said it for the Empress Dowager. His Majesty heard it himself. Don't blame her. The sudden revelation made Xiaoheng stop in his tracks. He staggered and almost fell. This time, it was Gu Jiao's turn to narrow her eyes and look up and down at Xiaoheng with a dangerous gaze. Haha, you still called me a little liar. It turns out that we're the same. The emperor had exposed two identities at once, but he still didn't realize it. He was thinking about how to reward the little magic doctor, while secretly returning to the palace, with Empress Dowager Zhuang. He left the lost couple at the door of the kitchen and stared at each other. Yuya was called over. When did your leg recover? Gu Jiao asked with a serious expression. Yuya's heart skipped a beat. She glanced at her husband guiltily, lowered her head and said weakly, It was the second day after your mother came here for the first time. Gu Jiao had an impression. The first time Princess Xinyang had visited was not long after Prince Ning's accident. At that time, Xiaoheng had been harmed by Prince Ning, and had injured his right hand. She had gone to Vermilion Bird Avenue and told Princess Xinyang that Xiaoheng had been living in the shadow of being abandoned by Princess Xinyang, and his unbearable past and self-loathing. Princess Xinyang came to Xiaoheng. With the help of his great-aunt, Xiaoheng learned that Princess Xinyang had never abandoned him. The mother and son's worries were solved. So, after his heart disease was cured, his leg was no longer crippled? But when he went to Hanlin Academy for duty the next day, it was clearly not like that. By the way, how's your hand? Does it still hurt? Can you write? It doesn't seem very good. I don't have much strength. Is my hand like my leg? Does it need? At that time, he had sighed and wanted to say something but stopped himself. He really looked like a little cripple, who could no longer walk. She comforted him and told him to strengthen his rehabilitation and massage more. He would definitely recover. Then she massaged him the entire way. Gu Jiao now seriously suspected that not only had his leg healed, but his hand had also healed. He was faking it. Gu Jiao crossed her arms and looked at Xiaoheng. Her small eyes were a bit fierce. Xiaoheng also did not expect that he would fall again and again. Not only was his act of faking a cripple exposed, even his act of faking a crippled hand was exposed. This was great. He did not even know who was blaming whom. What is it? Yaoshe saw that the three people's expressions were not quite right. Gu Jiao and Xiaoheng did not speak. Yuya pointed at Gu Jiao and quietly said to Yaoshe. Eldest young miss fell seriously ill at the border and almost froze to death. When she came back, she lied that nothing had happened to her. Yaoshe's expression changed. Yuya then pointed at Xiaoheng. There's also son-in-law's leg. In truth, it was healed a long time ago, but he also lied that he was still crippled. Yaoshe took a deep breath and tightened her grip on her handkerchief. It's the new year. Don't get angry, don't get angry. She squeezed out a smile. Today is Ahing and Jing Kong's birthday. Everyone is waiting for you in the main room. Following this, she looked at the young couple and put on a fake smile saying, After the new year, I will settle this debt with you. She turned around and helped Yuya into the main room. Gu Jiao raised an eyebrow and glanced at a certain person. Did you hear that? After the new year, I will settle this debt with you. Xiaoheng faintly smirked. You speak as if I don't need to settle this debt with you. Gu Jiao, your situation is more serious than mine. Gu Jiao. What sort of new title was this? Xiaoheng had blurted out this title. After saying it, he felt that it was quite good. He suddenly curled his lips and called out, "Gu jiao 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 jiao." Gu jiao opened her mouth and pondered for a few seconds. She then looked at him meaningfully. "Since we're even now, tonight you." Before she could finish speaking, his slender finger gently pressed against her soft lips. "No, you're not allowed to. You won't be allowed to see." Gu Jiao's small face darkened. Since the matter had been exposed, Xiaoheng might as well not hide it and openly entered the main room. It was just that everyone's attention was not on his legs for the time being. Glancing around, they faintly felt that something was off, but they could not figure it out for a while. Yaoshi had also learned bad things, so she did not remind them. She just waited for them to scare themselves. Brother-in-law sit. Gu Xiaoshan had Xiaoheng sit. Xiaoheng and little Jingkong were the birthday stars, and they sat next to each other on a bench. In fact, they did not have the habit of celebrating their birthday. It was little Jingkong who celebrated his birthday every year. Thanks to him, everyone in the family had started celebrating their birthday. The only thing they missed was Gu Jiao and Gu Yan's birthday. Gu Jiao was on the way to the frontier fortress. She did not celebrate her birthday, and neither did Gu Yan. Gu Yan said that he would celebrate his birthday with Jiao Jiao next year. Little monk here. Gu Yan gave the small clay sculpture he made to little Jingkong. This year, the house was finally not empty. It was a small fish pond, and there were 2 ugly carrots in it. He did not give Xiaoheng fish soup, but a courtyard. It happened to be a small house with last year's gift. It was also ingenious. Gu Xiaoshan gave the 2 of them 2 pen holders, one big and one small. The workmanship was exquisite, and there were even poems engraved on them. Little Jingkong liked it very much, and Xiaoheng was also very satisfied. Gu Xiaoshan had been studying carving for a long time. Not only did he improve his skills, but he also learned a lot. Now he had more words than the scholars in the capital. As long as he was told that these words needed to be engraved, he could immediately memorize them. Normal people memorize words according to the strokes, but Gu Xiaoshan memorized words as a pattern. Although the method was different, it achieved the same effect. In comparison, Gu Yan's knowledge was really too terrible to look at. This did not mean that Gu Yan was stupid. On the contrary, he was the smartest person in the family besides Xiaoheng. Nothing could be hidden from him. For example, the chastity mark on Gu Jiao's face. Yaoshi did not tell him, and he did not eavesdrop that night, but he could guess it. Another example was Gu Jiao's small eyes that fell on Xiaoheng from time to time. Gu Yan could not guess what Gu Jiao was thinking. It could not be helped. The twins were so powerful. Empress Dowager Zhuang left gifts for the 2 of them before she left. She gave little Jingkong a string of colored glass Buddha beads. This was the first batch of colored glass that Zhao successfully produced after the Liang state passed the colored glass technology to the Zhao state. The color and luster were very good. Of course, little Jingkong liked it very much. Empress Dowager Zhuang gave Xiaoheng a colored glass inkstone. The old chancellor gave the 2 of them books, and Yaoshi made 2 sets of clothes by herself. Gu Jiao also prepared a gift. She gave little Jingkong a rattledrum from the frontier fortress. After the victory, the 4-year-old child from Yueqing City gave the only rattledrum to her. You are right. The army did not leave. This is your reward. This was the most sincere intention that a child could have during the war. Little Jingkong soon found a problem. Why didn't brother-in-law give me a gift? Your sister gave me a gift. Xiaoheng looked at Gu Jiao meaningfully. She was the best gift for his birthday. I want to see it. Little Jingkong said. Since it was the little guy's birthday, Xiaoheng did not discourage him. He only picked a brush from the pile of gifts. Here. A brush. Little Jingkong shook his little rattledrum. My gift is still the best. Jiao Jiao likes me the most. They went to the backyard to light firecrackers. Brother-in-law. Gu Yan suddenly came to Xiaoheng and said mysteriously, Come here. I have something good to show you. Xiaoheng followed Gu Yan to the central room. At this moment, everyone was watching little Jingkong and Gu Xiaoshan light firecrackers in the backyard. The central room was deserted except for Gu Yan and Xiaoheng. Gu Yan sneakily took out a small porcelain bottle from his arms. It's freezing. It's freezing. What is this? Xiao Heng asked, puzzled. Wine. Gu Yan raised his eyebrows and said, it's not ordinary wine. It's a double brew, pear blossom brew and osmanthus brew. It took me a lot of effort to get it from my son-in-law. Why did you get it? Xiao Heng asked. Gu Yan said without changing his expression. I want to drink it. Brother-in-law, let's drink it together. Once you're drunk, Jiao Jiao will be able to do whatever she wants. Gu Yan was going all out for Jiao Jiao. You can't drink. Xiao Heng firmly objected. Gu Yan had a heart condition, and he was too young. He definitely couldn't drink alcohol. Gu Yan looked at him pleadingly. 1 cup is fine. Xiao Heng said. Not even half a cup. Gu Yan pursed her lips. But I'm here to drink with you. I've never drunk wine in my life. I heard that this kind of wine doesn't make people drunk. Brother-in-law, let me have a taste of it. Xiao Heng. No. Gu Yan lowered his head, feeling wronged. To be honest, it was hard for people to resist him like this, but Xiao Heng was sober. He wouldn't condone Gu Yan drinking. As if he could see Xiao Heng's unwavering determination, Gu Yan took a step back. Then, brother-in-law, why don't you try it for me and tell me what it tastes like? Okay. It was the new year, so Xiao Heng couldn't spoil the child's mood. When Gu Yan saw that he agreed, his eyes lit up again. He was as happy as a child. He personally took the wine glass and filled Xiao Heng's glass to the brim. He knew that his brother-in-law had a good tolerance for alcohol, but this kind of wine wasn't an ordinary double brew. He stole it from his son-in-law. 1 cup was enough to make him drunk. Get drunk. Brother-in-law. Xiao Heng took the glass. Just as he was about to drink, little Jing Kong and Gu Xiaoshan unexpectedly rushed in. Little Jing Kong bumped into Xiao Heng on the spot. Xiao Heng's hand trembled and spilled the entire glass of wine. Gu Yan. Gu Yan clenched his little fists. Xiao. He. Shang. Brother-in-law, I'm sorry. Little Jing Kong apologized and made a face at Gu Xiaoshan. Ha ha ha. Come and catch me. After he said that, he ran out. Gu Xiaoshan chased after him. Gu Yan suppressed his anger and poured a second glass for his brother-in-law. He said with a smile. It's okay, there's more. Xiao Heng took the second glass. In the end, the 2 troublemakers ran back. This time, it was Gu Xiaoshan. He directly knocked over Xiao Heng's glass. The glass fell to the ground with a bang. Gu Xiaoshan. Ha? Broken and safe? Gu Yan was furious. Broke in your head. The wine was almost gone. Gu Yan was about to die from anger, because of these 2 guys. They were really bad at everything, but they were number 1 at causing trouble. I'm fine. Xiao Heng said. Let me do it. You guys go out first. Don't prick your feet. As he spoke, he took a broom and came over to clean up the mess on the floor. It was also at this moment that Gu Xiaoshan noticed that Xiao Heng's walking was different from usual. He didn't limp. He, I have brother-in-law. Gu Xiaoshan looked at Xiao Heng's right foot. Brother-in-law, what brother-in-law? Hurry up and light the firecrackers. Gu Yan pushed Gu Xiaoshan out of the living room. Gu Xiaoshan. I just saw. Okay, you saw it. I know. Don't delay my business. Jing Kong. Xiaoshan is here. Gu Yan decisively waved at little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong grabbed a firecracker and pounced on Gu Xiaoshan. The 2 childish guys played together again. Gu Yan returned to the living room. Wasn't it just brother-in-law's foot? It was healed long ago. Idiot, you only noticed it now. Brother-in-law, let me help you. Gu Yan eagerly snatched the broom from him and cleaned up the mess on the floor. Then he shoveled it out with the bucket. When he returned to the living room excitedly, he didn't see his brother-in-law. Instead, his sister was sitting at the table with a flushed face. He walked over in a daze and asked Gu Jiao, Sister, where is brother-in-law? Gu Jiao looked at him with her misty eyes and pointed at the study room. Gu Yan saw that Gu Jiao's reaction was not right. He looked at Gu Jiao, and then at the porcelain bottle on the table. His heart skipped a beat. He picked up the porcelain bottle and shook it. It was empty. He lifted the porcelain bottle and poured the wine out. There was not a drop of wine left. No, it can't be Gu Yan. It's not you who drank it. Say it's not you. Bang. Gu Jiao's little head hit the table. Gu Yan. He wanted his brother-in-law to get drunk and send him to his sister's room. However, his brother-in-law didn't get drunk, but his sister passed out first. It's over, it's all over. Gu Yan sat down on the chair dejectedly. He let out a long sigh and also hit his head on the table. When Xiao Heng came out, he saw the two little heads on the table. Senior servant Fong was changing the bedding in the east room, so Xiao Heng had to send Gu Jiao back to the west room first. He would move her over later. Gu Yan said sullenly, "I'll ask Beansprout to make some hangover soup." The hangover soup was quickly sent over, but before he could feed her, Gu Jiao knocked it over and spilled it all over Xiao Heng. Looking at his sister's drunken appearance, Gu Yan knew that there was no way to save the situation. He shook his head helplessly and went to the backyard to light the firecrackers. Xiao Heng's body was covered in hangover soup. His clothes were thick enough so they weren't hot, but they were wet and uncomfortable. Moreover, when the cold wind blew, he would feel cold. He could only change his clothes first. He looked at Gu Jiao and said with amusement, "You're so drunk." Gu Jiao was indeed drunk. She didn't know that the little benefit she had been longing for was right in front of her. Xiao Heng stretched out his slender hand and gently untied his belt, then took off his winter coat and inner clothes. His plain white inner clothes were also wet and stuck to his firm muscles. He slowly took them off, revealing his fair skin, exquisite collarbones, broad shoulders, tight chest, and smooth waist and abdomen, which were full of masculine strength. Gu Jiao suddenly woke up. She opened her eyes in a daze. Looking at a certain someone's firm muscles and attractive body, she couldn't help but whistle in her heart. Wow. Digression. Don't ask. If you ask, you've seen everything you need to see. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1091011174. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. Chapter 529. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. Xiao Heng's shirt and pants were wet from the hangover soup, so he had no choice but to change out of them. When he finished changing and turned around, he subconsciously glanced at Gu Jiao, who was a drunken mess on the bed. Gu Jiao's sleeping posture was a bit, well, it was hard to explain. Her face was flushed, the quilt was kicked, and the pillow was crooked. She spread out her arms and legs and lay on the mattress with her head tilted to the side. "Young master, I've cleaned up." Outside the door, senior servant Fong said. "Okay, I know." Xiao Heng agreed. Xiao Heng came to the bedside and looked at Gu Jiao, who was sleeping in such a strange posture for the first time. He inexplicably felt strange in his heart. Then he looked at Gu Jiao's lips. Wait a minute. Is this girl drunk? Or is she dreaming? Why does it feel like she's drooling? Xiao Heng took out a handkerchief and gently wiped her clean. Why does it feel like this girl is smiling even in her dreams? Gu Jiao was drunk and couldn't stay up late, but the rest of the people played until midnight. Then, little Jing Kong and Gu Xiaoshan lit firecrackers. Not only their house, but the entire hutong was lit. Even so, Gu Jiao didn't wake up from her beautiful dream. Her husband is so beautiful and has such a good figure. It's the best I've ever seen in my 2 lifetimes. So good looking, so good looking. In her dreams, Gu Jiao hugged the small quilt and rolled around on the bed. The next day, Gu Xiaobao woke up the earliest. He was hungry and wanted to drink milk. Madame Yao fed him milk, so he didn't want to sleep anymore. A 3-month-old baby couldn't sit or crawl, so he could only accept his fate and lie down. His clothes were especially thick. However, Gu Xiaobao was used to it. He did not cry and just licked his fingers, letting Yaoshi sleep a little longer. Last night, When the firecrackers were burning and crackling, he had been obedient. Later, when he fell asleep and was woken up by the firecrackers, he did not make a fuss. He ate his fingers and coaxed himself to sleep. When Yaoshi woke up, Gu Xiaobao was still licking his fingers. Such an obedient child really melted Yaoshi's heart. Madame Yao dressed herself neatly and went to the central room. Yu Ya and senior servant Fang also got up. Soon little Jing Kong and Gu Xiaoshan also got up. The two of them sat in the central room in a daze. They did not know what Gu Xiaoshan and little Jing Kong were talking about. Both of them looked at the door of the west room. After a while, Xiao Heng came out of the west room. The two of them stared at his right foot. Gu Xiaoshan used his elbow to nudge little Jing Kong's arm and said in a low voice, "I didn't lie to you, right? Look, it's healed." He had discovered it yesterday, but he forgot about it because of Gu Yan's interruption. This morning, he pulled little Jing Kong along to verify it. Little Jing Kong stared at his bad brother-in-law's right foot and carefully observed it for a while. He nodded and confirmed seriously, "Yes, it's really healed." See, brother-in-law is healed as soon as Jiao Jiao came back. Gu Xiaoshan and Gu Jiao would call each other elder sister when they were together, but with little Jing Kong, they would call each other Jiao Jiao. Little Jing Kong's address was never affected by Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshan. It could be said that he was strong alone. "Brother-in-law." Little Jing Kong called out to Xiao Heng. He walked over and raised his hand to touch Xiao Heng's body. When he realized that he could not reach it, he moved a chair and climbed up. He stood on the chair, but he still could not reach it. You come down a little," he said. "What?" Xiao Heng asked. "Come down a little, I have something to tell you," little Jing Kong said. Xiao Heng decided to give the little monk some face. He bent down slightly and looked at the little monk at the same level. "What's wrong?" Little Jing Kong reached out his small hand and patted his shoulder solemnly. "Brother-in-law, you finally overcome the obstacle and become a normal person. I'm really happy for you." One who was unaccountably solicitous was hiding evil intentions. Xiao Heng squinted at the little guy and asked, "What exactly do you want to say?" Little Jing Kong thought for a while and said honestly, "I want to increase the rent." Xiao Heng was speechless. When Gu Jiao woke up, the whole family knew that Xiao Heng's legs had returned to normal. They all thought that Xiao Heng only recovered this morning. Madame Yao and Yu Ya did not say anything. After all, it was a happy occasion. Madame Yao also calmed down after thinking for a whole night. When she first learned that her daughter had married a crippled scholar from the countryside, her heart was filled with pain. Her daughter was the daughter of the Marquis. If she had raised her daughter since she was a child, she would not have married a crippled and poor boy. She had once had such thoughts as well. The reason why she accepted it was because she had never raised her daughter, so she had no right to criticize her daughter's choice. Secondly, she liked Xiao Heng's character. She comforted herself that her daughter might not have a better life after marrying a better man. As long as her daughter was happy, she had no regrets. However, this son-in-law of hers gave her a big surprise. Not only did he become the top scorer in Yuzhou and enter the Imperial College, but he also came out on top in the Imperial examinations and became the youngest top scorer in Zhao country. His only regret was his legs, but now, even this regret had disappeared. How could Madame Yao be ruthless enough to find Xiao Heng to settle accounts? As for her daughter hiding the fact that she had escaped death several times at the frontier fortress, she was more distressed than harshly scolding her. The young couple did not know that their crisis had quietly passed. Gu Jiao came out of the east room and found little Jing Kong sitting alone on the threshold of the front yard. He was small and his mushroom hair was neat and tidy. At first glance, he looked like a lonely mushroom growing in the snow. Gu Jiao walked over and bent down to look at him. "Jing Kong, what are you doing here?" Little Jing Kong turned around and looked at Gu Jiao. "I'm waiting for Shifu." When he said this, Gu Jiao remembered that little Jing Kong's Shifu would celebrate his birthday with him every year. He also came last year, but he did not meet with the others. He left little Jing Kong's birthday gift, a deed to a house in Liang country, and then left. Gu Jiao sat down next to little Jing Kong and asked, "Your Shifu didn't come last night?" "Yes." Little Jing Kong nodded, but he was a little depressed. Gu Jiao rubbed his little head and said, "It snowed heavily in Zhao country this year. Your Shifu is old, so it might not be convenient for him to go out, or he might have been delayed on the road." Because little Jing Kong always called his Shifu, Gu Jiao's impression of him was that he was a little old man with a white beard and a hunchback. In this kind of weather, even a strong man would have a hard time traveling, let alone an old man. Little Jing Kong thought about it seriously, and felt that it was not impossible. Compared to him, his Shifu was indeed quite old. So his Shifu might really have been delayed by the heavy snow. "Do you miss your Shifu a lot?" Gu Jiao asked. "Yes, the little." Little Jing Kong was an honest child. Gu Jiao paused and asked, "Why don't you write another letter to your Shifu?" Little Jing Kong curled his lips in disdain. "No, he didn't reply to the letter I wrote to him last time. The more he talked, the more it showed that he cared about his Shifu. He was a very affectionate child. His Shifu picked him up and raised him until he was 3 years old. In his heart, his Shifu was like a father, right?" Gu Jiao said to little Jing Kong. "How about this, when I reply to Ningxiang's letter, I'll ask her to go to the temple and ask if your Shifu is well, and if he went out." "Okay." Little Jing Kong did not refuse. Gu Jiao curved her lips. "What's your Shifu's name?" Little Jing Kong said Liaochen. Gu Jiao nodded thoughtfully. Judging from his Dharma name, he must be an enlightened monk. Little Jing Kong thought for a while and spread his hands. "I don't know if he's enlightened or not, but my Shifu is indeed very tall." Gu Jiao adjusted his image in her mind, from a little old man with a white beard to a big old man with a white beard. Gu Jiao finished writing the letter in the afternoon. The courier station in Zhao country was open all year round, but the letter was sent slowly during the Lunar New Year. Gu Jiao could send it to the courier station every few days. On the 7th day of the Lunar New Year, the long-awaited news of the Gu army's return to the capital finally came. The weather was beautiful. It snowed heavily for 3 days, but it cleared up on the 7th day of the Lunar New Year. The golden light shone on the earth, and the imperial city was an auspicious sign. When the people heard about the return of the army, they waited on the streets and at the city gate. For a moment, the crowd was surging and the crowd was boiling. The imperial guards had to use their bodies to block the excited people. The people could not rush out, so they could only stretch their necks. The uniform sound of horse hooves and armor came from afar. Under the bright sky, it was deafening, as if they could see the golden spears and armored horses on the battlefield. "It's the Gu army. The Gu army is back." A tall and strong man shouted loudly. The crowd became restless. The people who were not satisfied with being stopped by the roadside pushed each other forward. The imperial guards used a lot of strength and gritted their teeth to prevent the people from rushing out. Although the war did not spread to the capital, the people still got a lot of news from the frontier fortress through the official reports of the imperial court. When they heard that the old duke and the princess of the imperial court had fallen into the hands of the enemy, they almost thought that the tragedy of Zhao country losing to Qin country 10 years ago, and then sending Commandery Prince and as a hostage would happen again. But the Gu army won. Not only did they win against the remnants of the previous dynasty and the army of Qin country, but they also protected the princess of Zhao country. They took back the lost cities as quickly as possible, and annihilated the invading enemy forces at the smallest cost. They were the soldiers of Zhao country, the heroes of Zhao country. Tang Yueshan's leg injury had basically recovered. He took the lead and walked in the front. Before leaving the capital, he still had some fat on his belly, but after the war, it was gone. He lost a lot of weight, but he was very energetic. He wore dark armor. He had a strong back and a bare waist. He had a powerful aura. Behind him was Gu Chongqing, who was also riding a horse. Gu Chongqing wore a silver armor that flashed with cold light. The white cloak behind the silver armor fluttered in the wind. He wore a helmet, and the iron visor of the helmet was lowered. The commoners could only see his eyes that were as cold as knives and his valiant figure. Who in the capital didn't know that the Ding, and Marquis Shitzi was handsome and elegant. But when he was a military officer in the army, he was too unreasonable. So he gained the reputation of being a cold-faced Yama. But it was this cold-faced Yama that protected their Zhao country's mountains and rivers. The crowd burst into fierce cheers. I heard that Gu Shitzi is not married yet. What, you want to marry your daughter over? It's not impossible. Your daughter is only 3 years old. Who is that person? A young man pointed at the young man wearing silver armor behind Gu Changqing. When did the Gu family army have such a young general? To be able to walk behind Gu Changqing, it was reasonable to say that his position in the Gu family army was not low. But when the Gu family army left the city, they also came to see. The two commanders on the left and right as well as the generals were much older than Gu Changqing. This young man was clearly younger than Gu Changqing. Between his eyebrows was a bit immature. The people guessed for a while but couldn't guess who he was. In the end, an imperial guard in front of the people couldn't help but say, "It's Ding and Marquis Fu's second young master." Ding and Marquis Fu's second young master? Everyone was shocked. Didn't Ding and Marquis Fu only have one son who knew martial arts? The other young masters were all said to have never practiced martial arts. Even the youngest fourth young master was a sickly invalid. Aya, that person looks like Gu Chengfeng. At this time, a student from Qinghe Academy recognized his classmate. Coincidentally, Gu Qinglin was standing right next to him. Knowing that grandfather and brothers were returning, he couldn't wait at home, and came to the city gates to greet them. He knew that second brother had also gone to the frontier, but he didn't think that second brother would go to war. He thought that second brother was worried about grandfather, and ran over. He wouldn't be able to help at all. Heavens! Qinglin, that person. It can't really be your second brother, right? That student from Qinghe Academy pulled on Gu Qinglin's sleeve. He didn't dare believe his eyes. The other person's killing intent and heroic spirit was too shocking. It was completely different from his impression of Gu Chengfeng. No, it can't be Gu Chengfeng. It must be his eyes that were playing tricks on him. Gu Chengfeng wasn't that powerful. His classmate couldn't recognize him, but Gu Qinglin wouldn't make a mistake. That young soldier who had the qualifications to walk with his eldest brother and receive the praises of the people was clearly his second brother. Gu Qinglin's heart received 10,000 blows. So his eldest brother and second brother were this powerful. Only he was a good-for-nothing. Digression. Gu Qinglin. That's not right. There's also Gu Yan. Gu Yan world-weary face. Don't cue your grandpa Yan. This book's newest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1090790606. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.